Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was a chakra user in Harry Potter. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Whis and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Albus Dumbledore is considered by many the greatest wizard of modern times. Albus Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel. But there is one thing many wizards and witches don't know about Dumbledore. For one, Albus Dumbledore yearns for fame and does everything to stay at the top of the wizard society. He also loves to have power and to show this off. The fight with Grindelwald wasn't planned, and at the time he wasn't really after power and fame yet. But when the fight broke out he couldn't help but love it. The adrenaline that rushed through your body, he wanted more of it, and once the fight was over he was disappointed it had to end so fast. The fame was a plus point afterwards, and he loved all of the attention he received. As such, when he found Riddle in that orphanage, he did nothing to stop the boy from turning evil. On the contrary, he wanted the boy to turn evil so he could have the rush of adrenaline back when they fought. This time though he didn't end it as quickly as he did with Grindelwald. As a result, Riddle, who now called himself Lord Voldemort, became stronger and stronger till the point it got out of hand. It was not that Dumbledore couldn't handle him, no, it was that Voldemort chose to take followers under his lead, and this caused chaos to spread over the lands. By the time Dumbledore finally considered to go serious, he found out Voldemort had found a way to prevent himself from being killed that easily, and thus Dumbledore sat with a major problem that he himself hadn't prevented from forming. Not that he did not enjoy any minute of it, he was thrilled by it to have such a challenge. There were of course some costs, like the many lives Voldemort and his followers were taking. Dumbledore did not much to prevent as much deaths. He did found the Order of the Phoenix to oppose Voldemort and his followers. It made this game even better. Now both sides had their own chess pawns to play with. The time came to put this fight to an end, as Dumbledore noticed more and more people started to lose hope in him, and he didn't want to lose his position as greatest wizard of modern times. As thus Dumbledore thought up a plan how he could make Voldemort vulnerable so he could finish him off. Dumbledore knew about the Horcruxes Voldemort made. It was the reason why Voldemort couldn't be killed that easily. Destroying the Horcruxes wasn't as much of a problem. With the right tools they were easily destroyed. But those tools were rather rare, and finding the items Voldemort had placed his soul pieces in was a rather difficult mission to accomplish. Dumbledore didn't want to put too much effort in it, and he didn't really want to give his order too much information. That would kind of give his true self away. Then he found Sybil Trelawney, who he had an interview with for the position of divination. When the interview progressed further and further, he figured out that Sybil had no true talent in the subject. However, he got a brilliant plan how he could make a pawn to do his biddings and defeat the Dark Lord for him. Unknown by Sybil, and by extension Severus Snape, which Albus knew was listening in on the conversation, he pushed a little bit of his magic inside of Trelawney to trigger a prophecy. Although Sybil hadn't shown the talent, Albus knew that Trelawney's great-great-grandmother had been a seer. But Sybil herself obviously not being a seer, there was a chance that if he forced a prophecy that they won't always be correct. But that was kind of what he was planning. To make a lure for Voldemort with a false prophecy. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches born to those who have thrice to fight him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives, was the prophecy which Trelawney gave him. Dumbledore smiled as he had something to work on. He gave Trelawney the job she wanted, even though he knew she had no talent. He always thought it was useless to teach divination anyway. Divination was a talent you had to be born with, so it didn't matter much if the teacher hadn't the natural talent. Now all he had to do was to get a child from somewhere and plant it with one of the families that had thrice defied Voldemort. That could be either the Potters or the Longbottoms. He knew the Longbottoms had had a son on July 30th. What he also knew was that Lily Potter had had a miscarriage. He had to make sure that Voldemort wouldn't target the Longbottom's child. While he was sure the Longbottom's child would grow up with great talent, he was also sure Voldemort would definitely be able to kill the child, and that would have immediately nullified the prophecy. After getting back to Hogwarts after the interview, Dumbledore started to prepare for travel. He would leave to search for the perfect child the next morning. When the next morning came, Dumbledore told his deputy, Minerva McGonagall, that he would leave for an unknown amount of time to search for something that would help them in their fight against Voldemort. It took several weeks before he finally found what he had been looking for. A young mother with a child around the same age as the Longbottom's child. The mother seemed to be very sick, and he pretended to care about her and her child in helping making her feel better. What he did though was making sure the mother wouldn't get better and would die instead, giving him full access to the child. He was a little curious about the child though. The child had silvery white hair and bright green eyes. The eyes were a little shade off from the eyes Lily Potter had. This made it perfect. Now he only needed to change the child's hair color to make him seem like to be the Potter's child. What he also needed to do was make sure that the child would survive the killing curse. Dumbledore had found a solution for this, and he was sure he was probably the only wizard alive that knew a way to survive the killing curse. To make sure the boy would also go to Hogwarts when he got to the age of 11, he put a little bit of magic inside of the boy. Next he placed his protective charms on the boy that would prevent him from being killed, and last he changed the boy's hair color from the silvery white to the Potter's black hair. The next thing he did when he returned from his trip was modifying everyone's memories to let them think that Lily and James' child didn't die due through a miscarriage, but was born a healthy baby boy. They named the child Harry James Potter. No one seemed to suspect a thing, and the Potters lived happily with their son they had been given. Dumbledore told them about the prophecy and told them to hide and that he would provide the Fidelius charm. He also told the Longbottoms to hide, but they seemed to be too stubborn and told him that wouldn't be necessary. Dumbledore then made sure that Voldemort would go after the Potters first by making sure they made Peter Pettigrew their secret keeper. Dumbledore knew the boy was the traitor among the set of friends that called themselves the Marauders. He knew Peter hadn't felt like he really belonged to the group ever since the group had been formed. Of course he knew the other 3 members had cared about Peter and did see him as a friend, but Peter felt like an outsider because he wasn't as close as James and Sirius were. Even Remus was more as a brother to the other 2. Peter just walked along with them. But then he had a run-in with Voldemort and out of fear had joined his group of Death Eaters. On October 31, 1981 came Peter did exactly what he had wanted him to do. To tell Voldemort about the whereabouts of the Potters and sell them out. Voldemort ran straight into the trap Dumbledore had set up for him. Voldemort killed both James and Lily Potter. Then the only thing standing in his way was the little boy. As the Dark Lord raised his wand to the boy he was a bit surprised at the intelligent look that was in the boy's eyes. Avada Kedavra. Voldemort yelled as the green light of the curse rushed towards little Harry. When the curse was just inches away from the boy the protection charms Dumbledore placed on him activated. The curse crashed into the powerful shield and decreased in power. The shield as well started to weaken and eventually broke down as too much power was pressed on it. However the killing curse had weakened as well. As it came into contact with Harry a wide aura appeared suddenly around him and the killing curse was rebounded back to Voldemort. Voldemort's body was destroyed in the process, but due to his Horcruxes was able to survive. He fled the house, weakened as he now no longer had a body. The wide aura around Harry disappeared again as the threat was gone. Harry's hair had turned back to its silvery white color when the wide aura had surrounded him. Several minutes later the house was visited by the Potter's friend, Sirius Black. As he noticed James was dead he wanted to rush off to get back at the filthy rat that had sold out his friends. But he also wanted to know if the other occupants of the house were okay. Hagrid joined him on that moment. Sirius asked the half-giant to search for Lily and little Harry to see if they were okay. He even left his precious motorcycle for Hagrid to use. He then ran off to go after Peter Pettigrew. Hagrid found both Lily and Harry in the nursery. Lily was obviously dead. Harry though, while alive, had gone through a curious change. His black hair was now silvery white. Hagrid couldn't see if his eyes had changed, as well as the boy was peacefully asleep. Hagrid did spot a curious cut on the boy's forehead. It was in the shape of a lightning bolt. Hagrid picked the boy up gently, making sure he didn't wake up. He then gently wrapped a blanket around the boy so he wouldn't get a cold. Getting on the bicycle Sirius had given him to use he left to get to the place Dumbledore wanted him to go in case the boy had been orphaned. Chapter 2. It was the day after All Hallows Eve and late that evening one Albus Dumbledore appeared rather suddenly in a neighborhood that was quite known for its normalcy. As in such there have never been a man like Albus Dumbledore been in their street. The street's name was that of Privet Drive and all of the houses in that particular street looked quite the same. Albus fished out what appeared to be a lighter out of one of his pockets in his colorful robe. As he clicked it instead of a little flame to be ignited the nearest street lamp went off. He repeated this until the whole of Privet Drive was completely deprived of any lights. The only source of light came from the moon and stars above. Humming a happy-sounding tune, Albus walked in the direction of one particular house. That particular house was number 4, the house where the sister of one Lily Potterna Evans lived. He was planning to leave the boy with her and her husband to raise. He knew Lily and Petunia hadn't had a very good bond with each other. He knew Petunia had been jealous that Lily could do magic and she couldn't. That jealousy went so far that eventually she began to detest magic and anything that was abnormal. This led her marrying one Vernon Dursley, a man with the same mindset as herself. As Albus arrived at number 4 he saw a tabby cat sitting on the little wall in front of the house. It looked rather stiff. Albus sat down next to the cat and couldn't help but chuckle. "Fancy seeing you here, Minerva," Albus then said. Just as he had said that, the cat had suddenly been replaced by a stern-looking woman with black hair done in a tight bun. She wore emerald green robes. "How did you know it was me?" Minerva asked. "I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly," Albus answered with an amazed expression on his face and his eyes twinkling. "You would be stiff too if you're sitting on a brick wall all day," Minerva replied. "All day? Well, you could have been celebrating," Albus asked. "Well, I have nothing against celebrating such an event. They could have been at least a bit more careful. I heard it on the Muggle news. Owls flying around all day. Shooting stars. I bet Daedalus Diggles is behind those," Minerva said, exasperated. "You can't really blame them. They haven't had anything to celebrate for the past 11 years," Albus replied. "But that's no reason to lose their heads. People are being downright careless, out on the streets in broad daylight, not even dressed in Muggle clothes, swapping rumors." She threw a sharp sideways glance at Dumbledore here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something, but he didn't, so she went on. "A fine thing it would be if, on the very day you know who seems to have disappeared at last, the Muggles found out about us all." "I suppose he really has gone, Dumbledore?" Minerva asked. "It seems that way," Albus replied. "Rumor has it that he went after the Potters. They say that Lily and James." Minerva took in a deep breath to calm herself. "They say that Lily and James are dead," Minerva continued. Albus bowed his head in return, letting Minerva know that what she had heard was the truth. "Lily and James the First can't believe they're really gone. What about their son? What about little Harry? I heard people talking about that it was because of him that you know who is gone. That he turned his wand on little Harry intending to kill him, but couldn't. He couldn't kill a 1-year-old child," Minerva said. "It's true. It seems he wasn't able to kill little Harry. Truly a miracle," Albus replied. "What about Harry though? Where is he?" Minerva asked. "Hagrid is bringing him," Albus replied. "You think it wise to let Hagrid bring him? I know he has a good heart, but he can be rather clumsy sometimes," Minerva asked. "I thrust him on this task," Dumbledore replied. "Where is he going to live though, now that he is orphaned?" Minerva then asked. "Right here actually," Albus answered. "You're kidding me? You're saying Harry Potter is supposed to live here with these people? I've been watching them all day. They're horrible. They're nothing like us. They've this son, I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street screaming for sweets," Minerva said. "They're his only relatives he has left," Albus replied. "He can live with other people that would likely love him more. Obviously there are a lot of people who will gladly take him in," Minerva said. "There probably would, but being famous before he can walk and talk. It will probably turn his head. It is better if he grows up away from all of this," Albus replied. Minerva wanted to say more, but she stopped herself in doing so. She saw Albus's point. It was then that Hagrid arrived. "I hope everything turned to be alright?" Albus asked as Hagrid stepped off the motorcycle he had come with. "Everything went alright, sir. He's been asleep the whole flight," Hagrid answered. "May I see him?" Albus asked. "Of course. There is only one curious thing though, and it might shock you," Hagrid replied. As Hagrid showed the boy, they immediately could tell what was so curious. Albus's eyes widened as he saw the silvery white hair the boy had before he had changed it black. Minerva gasped as she saw the change. "How can the glamour I placed on him become undone?" Albus wondered. "What do you think has caused this?" Minerva asked. "The side effect of the curse perhaps," Albus suggested. "Yes, maybe the killing curse caused my glamour to falter," Albus thought. "You really think it wise to place him with his relatives? I know you said it was better for him to live away from all the fame, but they won't ever accept him. Especially with such a hair color," Minerva said. "I see no other option. He would be safest here. Knowing Lily, she probably placed a protection charm on him. I know she has been reading up on blood protections. If this is the case, the blood protection would only be active near blood relatives," Albus replied. Minerva reluctantly gave up on the argument and let Albus place Harry on the doorstep of number 4. Albus then placed a letter with the boy to explain to the Dursleys what had occurred and that they were the best people to look after him. "Well, we better be going. Maybe joining up on some party or two," Albus said after a few minutes of silence. Minerva solemnly nodded, turned into a tabby cat and ran off to somewhere. Hagrid said his goodbyes to Albus and took off on the motorcycle he had come with. Albus returned all the light to the street lamps before he disappeared from Privet Drive with a silent popping sound. Little Harry was nothing the wiser of what had occurred just now, since he had been drained of his energy after using the white aura to protect himself against the evil energy that had tried to attach itself to him. It was to the scream of Petunia Dursley the very next day that he groggily woke up. He didn't wail like any other 1-year-old child would do though, instead he sleepily rubbed his eyes with his tiny hands and started to stare offended to the woman who had woke him up. While only 15 months old, little Harry was a very intelligent child. Petunia Dursley quickly brought the child inside as to not let the neighbors know he was there. She placed Harry on the kitchen table, read the letter that was placed with him before she called for her husband Vernon. "What is it, pet?" Vernon asked as he walked into the kitchen, adjusting his tie. Petunia pointed at the boy before she replied. "My sister and her husband got themselves killed and her headmaster of the school she went to want me to take care of their brat," she said in disgust. "Can't we just take him to an orphanage or something?" Vernon asked as he was eyeing the boy's very strange hair color. "We can't. He'll notice immediately. You don't know him like I do. That man is incredibly powerful," Petunia answered. "Then we'll move," Vernon said in response. Petunia shook her head. "He'll just track us down," Petunia answered sadly. "I'm not paying anything to provide for a freak," Vernon replied. "We'll just give him Dudder's old stuff," Petunia said with a shrug. "What about diapers and food?" Vernon said. "Put some old cloth on him or something. We can wash it out and reuse it. As for food, he can have the leftovers," Petunia replied. Vernon watched the boy. The boy stared back at him with eyes too intelligent for his age. There was still one problem that bothered Vernon though. Where should he sleep? "I don't want him in any of the guest rooms," Vernon asked. "The cupboard under the stairs. We don't really use it," Petunia answered simply. She then walked to said cupboard and started on making a place for the boy to sleep. She then went back to the kitchen, picked up the boy and placed him into the cupboard before closing the door. Vernon didn't waste any more time and continued preparing to go to work. Petunia said her goodbye to her husband and then went to get her son to feed his morning meal. After that she took out some of the leftovers from the day before and mashed them to a pulp to feed to her sister's brat. Little Harry though refused to eat something this vile. He missed the yummy meals he would normally get. Petunia smacked him as he spit out the spoonful of food he was given. "Eat it or you won't get anything at all," Petunia said with a shrill tone to her voice. Harry reluctantly swallowed the food down and glared at the woman feeding him. The boy's glare made Petunia very nervous. No 1-year-old should be able to glare like that, yet the boy did. After the boy was fed she placed him back in the cupboard and paid no further attention to him, instead all of her attention went to her own son. She was reminded to little Harry again when he started to cry late at night. She wondered why he hadn't started crying earlier, as he must have been dirty way earlier than when he had cried, and he should have probably cried earlier for feeling hungry. Yet he hadn't cried earlier than now. Petunia quickly cleaned the boy up, putting an old cloth on him as use for a diaper and fed him the scraps he hadn't finished that morning. The next day it went the same as the previous day. She fed the boy leftovers, left him in the cupboard and forgetting him until he made a sound late at night. She then cleaned him up again and fed him again. This continued for the few following days until Petunia got tired of him crying late at night and tried to teach him to cry earlier, which he to her and Vernon's surprise he did. The boy's intelligence started to creep them out. It seemed that Harry easily picked things up and he already had begun to say some words. Words that he had obviously heard coming from the hallway as he had been locked up in his cupboard. Petunia one day had pulled the boy out of the cupboard and told him to walk. When he didn't comply she forced him to his feet. When he fell down she slapped him, forced him back to his feet and said to him to try again. He could walk a month after he was taken in by the Dursleys and could already talk in sentences. Petunia set him up to do the house chores. The boy only hurt himself once or twice before learning how to avoid getting hurt. At age 3 he was finally allowed to go outside of the house, but only to attend to the garden. Chapter 3. Harry, now 4 years old, was now allowed to spend some more time outside and this time to spend to his own liking, as far as he didn't do any funny business. Dudley took this opportunity to play a game he liked to call Harry Hunting. He played it often with his group of friends that always followed him. They never were really able to catch him though as he was too fast and too agile for them. They most of the time also started to lose interest in him after a while. Mostly because they got tired from all of the running. The day was another of those days where he was chased by Dudley and his gang. As he ran he noticed he was running past the house that had been abandoned for years. Harry made a break and turned back to the house. Dudley and his gang hadn't caught up to him yet. Knowing they would never enter the house he went inside. Rumors had it the house was haunted. As thus many children didn't dare to enter the house. Heck, there were even some adults that were afraid to enter it. Harry though wasn't afraid of an empty house. He didn't believe in ghosts and even if they did exist, he didn't believe them to be evil or be able to do any harm. Harry looked around in the house after he closed the door behind him when he had entered. The house was dusty and cobwebs had formed in most of the corners. The hallway was kind of big, with doors going off to other rooms and 2 staircases leading to the upper floor. You could look down into the hallway from a balustrade. There was an Asian theme to how the house was stylized. Harry started with exploring the lower floor, curious to what the house holds for secrets. There was a kitchen, a sleeping quarter which was obviously for the servant working in the kitchen. This room was placed directly next to the kitchen. Then you had the dining room that was placed directly next to the kitchen opposite of the servant's room. Then you had the living room with an entertainment room next to it. There was also some kind of office. It was here he found the first interesting things. It were the documents left behind in this room that made him curious. A few books were also there, placed in a bookcase standing against one of the walls. One of the books had pictures of people in them with information about said persons. Although he didn't know what was written since it wasn't written in English. Some of the documents were written in English and were talking about some kind of techniques. It also kept referring to something called chakra. Harry wasn't dumb. He knew he was different than any other child in the neighborhood. He knew that some kind of energy was flowing inside of him. He once had tried to focus on this energy and somehow had been able to make it visible. His aunt and uncle had seen him do this and he had been punished for it greatly. He didn't try to do it again while he was doing his chores or right in front of their eyes, that is. He did focus on this energy while he was in his cupboard. This energy always came out as a bright white aura. He found it pretty and he always felt great when he used it. He hadn't found a way yet if he could use it for something. Maybe in these documents he can find a way to utilize this energy. As it really was this chakra these documents kept talking about. Harry placed everything he wanted to take a closer look at in the hallway and continued his search of the house on the upper floor. The upper floor mostly consisted of bedrooms and some bathrooms, a washing room with a smaller bedroom next to it. Probably another room for a servant. He also found a library. In the library there were a lot of scrolls and books. He found out they were also talking about this chakra. Harry got a sheet from one of the beds inside one of the bedrooms and used it to carry all the scrolls and books he wanted to read and took them downstairs. He placed the other documents and books with them and searched through his collection in hope to find something that would explain what chakra was and how to use it. He found it in one of the scrolls. It explained there were 8 gates spread in the body. One placed at the base root of the body. One placed at the navel. One placed at the solar plexus. One placed at the heart and one at the ascending heart. One placed at the throat. One placed at the brow and the last placed at the crown of the head. The scroll also explained how to access it and to Harry's surprise, he found out he could already do this. It was bringing out the energy inside of him. This energy was called chakra. Now knowing what the energy was he searched for a way to make use of it. He found many scrolls describing techniques that were called jutsus. It also described you had to use hand seals to activate said jutsus. Harry also read about chakra controlling exercises. Harry found it a good idea to start on those. The first step on controlling one's chakra was to pull it out. This he had already under control. The second step was the leaf balancing. For this you had to balance a leaf on your forehead whereby you uses your chakra to keep it stuck. The third step was the tree climbing exercise. The tree climbing exercise worked as followed. This training involves focusing a fixed amount of chakra to the bottom of one's feet and using that to climb a tree without using one's hands. If the stream of chakra is too weak, the user will lose their footing on the tree and fall off. If it is too strong, the user will be pushed away from the tree, causing the bark of the tree to break around the point of contact and the user to fall. Harry, upon noticing how late it was becoming, quickly hid all the documents, scrolls and books somewhere in the house so no one would find them and went back home and decided to start his training the next morning. Naturally when he got back home he was being punished for being home late and didn't get any food that night. After he had cooked the Dursleys their meal he was sent immediately to his cupboard. Harry pondered over how he could change all of this. If he was going to train in chakra control he would also need to have some stamina. While he did have quite some stamina his body would not be strong enough if it was deprived of its vital needs. Harry had hoped to start his training the next morning but of course his relatives wouldn't let him. He got a major list of chores to do and after he was finished he was to go back into his cupboard, all the while Petunia kept an eye on him. It was obviously they weren't going to let him get home late again. Sighing about the unfairness about it all, Harry hoped he could leave the house again by tomorrow. Maybe Harry should just leave when he has the chance. The Dursleys didn't like him and he knows that. They hated him for the power he possesses. They call him a freak because of it. According to the documents he found there must be more people who have these special powers. Maybe he should try and find them. Then he won't be hated by everyone anymore. People would finally understand him. It took about a week before his relatives let him out again and this time when he left he went back to the house where he had hid the documents and stayed there. There was a forest close by, accessible through the back. Harry began his training with a leaf balancing exercise, but to his surprise, he had this quite quickly under his control. He then decided to skip this step and went on to the next, the tree climbing exercise. Harry chose a small tree to begin his exercises with. With his first try he was violently rebounded from the tree, bark flying around. When his first day of training ended, several trees had fallen down from his trying to climb the trees. Every time he had tried he had been rebounded violently without him even been able to take one step. Not really sure why this was, Harry searched all of the documents to look for the answer. He wished he could read all of them, but he still didn't know in which language the ones were with the funny signs. The English document sadly didn't give him the answers he sought. He decided to go to the library the next day. Right now he was kind of starved. The only meal he had gotten was the meal he got in the morning, which was only some bread and water. Looking to the forest, an idea came to mind. Harry ran back into the house. He remembered seeing some kind of weapons scattered throughout the house. He could use them to catch himself some food. There must be some rabbits running around in the forest, and if there was a stream he could catch himself some fish. By the time he called it quits, he had only managed to catch himself a meagerly small rabbit. Harry, when he went back in the house to get started on preparing his meal, found out there was no gas installed, nor was there any electricity or water. Great, just great. How am I supposed to cook this rabbit if I can't get the stove to work? Harry asked himself. Harry paced the kitchen, thinking really hard. There must be people living on this planet being able to cook their meal in another way. How did people in the past prepare their meal? He remembered having seen something on the telly once. It was some kind of history program. He remembered people used to use fire to roast their meat. The only problem now was to get the fire started. Searching the house, he was lucky to find some matches to start the fire with. He then went outside and started gathering some wood to make a campfire. The fire didn't really want it to keep going though, when he just threw the burning match on the wood. It eventually went out. After several tries, Harry had finally a fire going. He then skinned his little rabbit, stick it to a clean branch, and started to roast it in the fire, making sure it wouldn't fall into the fire or will burn to crisps. Chapter 4. About a month has gone by. Harry learned that the texts that weren't in English were written in Japanese. He spent his time learning the language and started to strengthen his body by practicing something that was called taijutsu. Taijutsu was practically hand-to-hand combat, something you didn't really need to have chakra for. Since he was still trying to find out what he did wrong with his tree climbing exercise, he thought to practice taijutsu instead until he found out what he did wrong. He got better in reading Japanese as that first month went by. He had also gotten better in catching himself some food. Now he was able to catch himself at least 3 fish a day and some good-sized rabbit. He also was able to seek out edible fruits, nuts and mushrooms. Now able to read the Japanese texts, Harry started to search for the answer to his problem. Harry found out that most of the texts written in Japanese were about people and what they were capable of. There were also some documents with techniques that were obviously very advanced. Then he found his answer. Apparently there are some things like abilities or other advances people can be born with. The documents talked about Kekkei Genkai, or bloodline limit as it was translated in English. Kekkei Genkai could only exist in certain family lines. They mostly consisted of being able to combine 2 or more elemental releases and create a new one. There were also some Kekkei Genkai that had to do with the eyes. They were called Dojutsu. There were 3 well-known ones. The Byakugan, the Sharingan and the Rinnegan. There seems to be more Dojutsu, though there wasn't much known about them. Kekkei Genkai were obviously the inheritances that gave the special abilities, but there were also some inheritances that only gave advantages. These had to do with the people's own chakra. Apparently chakra is very complex. Aside that you can perform techniques by molding your chakra, every person has also a certain affinity to an element. There are 5 main elements consisting of water, fire, wind, lightning and earth. Other elements that exists falls under the Kekkei Genkai and can only be used by the people having the certain chakra. Next to the elemental affinities, people's chakra also have a personal color within the family. Not much was written about chakra colors. There were only a few chakra colors written in detail. One of those was the white chakra. Harry got curious when he read this, because apparently when you normally mold chakra, you're supposed to mold the standard chakra that has nothing to do with a person's personal chakra color. Apparently the standard chakra gives off a bluish-white aura when molded into a visible form. As Harry knew, has always got molded as a bright white color with no bluish color into it whatsoever. It was then that Harry found out he was using the special colored chakra people could use. His was obviously white chakra. As he read about white chakra, he found out why he was rebounded off the trees so violently. Apparently white chakra has 2 advances above the standard chakra. One of them is that it reacts violently and has the ability to make techniques more powerful if white chakra is molded for the technique. The documents also say that most people that have white chakra tends to have an affinity to lightning techniques. This probably has to do with the violent nature of the chakra. The other advantage is that white chakra has a purifying ability. It can purify the most vile chakras if it comes into contact with it, but it has a limit to how much it can purify. If the amount of vile chakra is greater than the amount of white chakra, then the white chakra will be overpowered and its purifying effect will be cancelled out. Now knowing about the difference between white chakra and the standard chakra, Harry continued his training in chakra control. While knowing how to mold white chakra, Harry had quite some difficulty with the molding of the standard chakra. He had read that the standard chakra was formed by pulling it from every part of the body, while the colored chakra only comes from a certain part of the body. White chakra apparently comes from the crown of the head. It took Harry about a week to get the standard chakra molded. With the molding of standard chakra down, his growth in chakra control grew immensely. He could climb a tree within a day and had the water walking down in about a week. His next goal in his training was learning some techniques and to learn how to use your standard ninja weapons. He switched every day what he was going to train himself in. One day he would train in learning techniques, the next day he would learn how to throw kunai and shuriken. The first techniques he learned were apparently some standard academy leveled ones, consisting of bunshin and henge, or the clone technique and the transformation technique. He also got the body switch technique down pretty quick. The next technique was of a much higher level, and he needed to have more than only knowing the hand seals and knowing how much chakra was needed. For the next technique he needed a contract scroll. Apparently one of such scrolls was laying innocently among the other scrolls he had gathered. The next step he had to do was sign the scroll with his name and fingerprints, and it had to be done with his own blood with the hand he was going to do the summoning with. There were only a few names already on the scroll, apparently from the other persons who have signed the contract. After Harry had signed the contract, he tried his very first summon. Fuchius no Jutsu. Harry cried out after putting down his bloody hand on the ground and pushing some chakra through. A puff of smoke appeared, and when it cleared, Harry looked down at a very young wolf cub. Harry blinked. He hadn't expected a wolf cub to appear. He wasn't even sure what would have appeared. Apparently the contract was for summoning wolves. Harry also read that the amount of chakra used decided which summon would appear. Apparently he had obviously been too gentle with the chakra output. He tried to summon a wolf again, this time pushing some more chakra into it. This time the wolf cub that appeared was bigger and obviously older. It barked at him and started to lick his face in a playful way. It took him some time to get the cub off of him and continue his training. Several more cubs were summoned until he got too frustrated and unintentional, let some white chakra loose in the summon technique. As a result, he summoned a very old wolf, much older than all of the cubs he had been summoning. "So it was you who was summoning our cubs?" The wolf let out in an old and raspy voice, startling Harry a bit. Harry didn't know summoned animals had the ability to talk. The wolf cub certainly didn't. The wolf was also speaking Japanese to his surprise, and while he did know how to read Japanese, to actually hear someone speak the language was quite different. The old wolf suddenly started to laugh, amused by Harry's startled expression. "You didn't know about our ability to talk human speech, did you?" The wolf said as he observed Harry, circling around him. It took Harry a while to decipher the wolf's speech before he replied clumsily. "No, not really. The cubs certainly don't talk," Harry answered. "Of course they can't. They haven't learned to speak yet, and you seem to barely speak yourself," the wolf said as he continued circling Harry, now with a curious look on his face. "It's not like I am fluent in speaking Japanese yet. English is my mother language, you know. It also is not like I have someone who can teach me how to speak Japanese. I only just recently taught myself how to read Japanese," Harry replied. I see. You certainly look young for a summoner though. Not that I have anything to complain about. I haven't been summoned for years," the wolf said with a laugh. The wolf stopped circling Harry and sat down in front of him. "We wolves have been summoned by one family only. When we weren't summoned for years, I thought no one of that family was alive anymore. Maybe I was wrong. You certainly have the looks of a haddock. What's your name, kid?" the wolf asked. "A haddock? I don't know anyone by the surname of Haddock. My name is Harry, Harry Potter," Harry answered. You don't know anyone by the name of Haddock. Yet you were able to summon me personally. Only those of the Haddock line hold the white chakra to summon us white wolves. I am Yurufu, the pure one and the first of the white wolves. If you don't know the name, show me some proof that you are of that line, even if you don't know about it," the wolf, Yurufu, replied. "Show you some proof?" Harry asked hesitantly. "Show me the white chakra of the Haddock clan," Yurufu answered. Harry complied and molded his white chakra with ease. Yurufu started to smile with glee. "You really are one of them. Looks like I was wrong that there was no one left alive," Yurufu said. "Maybe the white chakra's power has been very low in a few generations and is just now resurfacing again. Or maybe they forgot about the summon scroll," Harry replied. "Might be possible, but your white chakra is quite powerful for someone for just skipping a few generations. For such level of chakra, at least someone of just a few generations apart must have high enough white chakra to be able to utilize it," Yurufu said. Then maybe the scroll just got lost to them. Harry said. You did find it, kid. Yorufu replied. Yeah, in an abandoned house. I guess it was by pure chance. Harry said. Yorufu said, and for the first time his focus averted from Harry as he started to look around. This house. Is this the house you found the scroll in? Yorufu asked. Yes, it is. Harry answered. It doesn't look any familiar, nor does it look anything close to the houses I've ever seen. Yorufu replied. Yorufu's attention went back to Harry. Where are your parents anyway? I'd like to speak to them. Yorufu asked. According to my aunt and uncle, my parents died in a car crash. Harry answered as his expression became very sad. Car crash? What's a car? Yorufu asked, dumbfounded. Well, a car is a vehicle with wheels. It runs on gas to let the motor work, which makes the wheels rotate, pushing it forwards. Harry tried his best to explain. So it's something like a cart, only not pulled forward by a horse or other animals. Interesting. Yorufu replied. Silence then fell for a few minutes. Yorufu seems to be thinking on something. Then he started to talk again. The crash of any kind seems very unlikely to just kill a ninja. Something seems fishy about this. Yorufu said in a thoughtful voice. I also had a feeling they weren't very truthful when they told me my parents died in a car crash. They said it too often as if they were trying to convince themselves that it was the truth. Harry replied. Your aunt and uncle don't really like you, do they? Yorufu asked. No, they don't. It's because I am different, because I can mold chakra. I haven't really met anyone else who's able to mold chakra like I can. Harry answered thoughtfully. Yorufu seemed surprised when he had said that. No one around has the ability to mold their chakra. That seems very unlikely. Now that I think about it, you also told me your mother language was English and not this Japanese. As far as I know, I've never heard of completely different speech. Can you show me around the village? Yorufu asked. Well, actually it is a town, but I guess I can show you around. Although people might get a fright seeing a wolf walking free. Harry said. Yorufu started to laugh at that. This old wolf might be scary looking to the common people now, but I do have a couple of tricks up on my sleeve. Yorufu replied. Chapter 5. Well, actually it is a town, but I guess I can show you around. Although people might get a fright seeing a wolf walking free. Harry said. Yorufu started to laugh at that. This old wolf might be scary looking to the common people now, but I do have a couple of tricks up on my sleeve. Yorufu replied. Harry got very surprised as the old wolf managed to get through some hand seals. Apparently the wolf had more hand-like paws than a normal wolf's paw. Henge. Yorufu exclaimed as a puff of smoke started to surround him. When the smoke cleared, in the place where Yorufu had been sitting minutes before now sat a white-haired puppy. How about this? Better? Yorufu asked. Dumbfounded Harry just nodded. Well, I think it best if you show me town tomorrow. It is kind of getting late. Yorufu said as he noticed it was getting dark through one of the windows. Right, better get some rest then. Harry said, grinning. The next day Harry showed Yorufu around Surrey, making sure to avoid Privet Drive or to be seen by any of the Dursleys. Harry noticed Yorufu looking around with wonderment. This place looks weird. Not like anything I've ever seen in the elemental countries. Yorufu said, making sure no one but Harry noticed him talking to him. The elemental countries? Harry questioned. It's the place ninjas originates from. You haven't heard of it, have you? What's this place called? Yorufu asked. No, I haven't. Not really anyway. There may have been a mention of it in one of the documents I've read. The town we're in is called Surrey, which is located in England. Harry answered truthfully. I see, so that's how it is. Yorufu said, more to himself than to Harry. What do you mean? Harry asked curiously. What I mean is that right now you're in what we call the Outer Lands. You see, the elemental countries are also referred to as the Hidden Continent. Yorufu answered. Do you know how to get to the elemental countries? Harry asked with a hopeful glance in his eyes. I do, but it takes some time to set up everything. Yorufu answered. Set up what exactly? Harry asked confused. Only those which origins comes from within the Hidden Continent are allowed in. You can't get there with normal means of travel. For us to get you there we will have to set up a reverse summoning. Yorufu answered. Reverse summoning? Harry asked. Instead of you summoning us wolves we are going to summon you to where we are at. Yorufu answered. And you do that right now? Harry asked hopefully. No, not really. You see, there is still a barrier around the whole place, and us wolves need to get into position first if we are going to summon you to the elemental countries. Yorufu answered. Then how long does it take to be ready? Harry asked. At least a couple of days. Yorufu answered. I see. In the meantime, can you teach me some things? Harry asked. Well, I suppose, but first I must return to tell the others to start setting up the reverse summon. Summon me again in about a day or so and I'll have plenty of time teaching you. Yurufu answered. That'll be great. I guess I see you in a day then. Best to make sure no one notice you disappear though. Maybe it's better to return to the house first before you go. Harry replied. Good thinking, kid. Yurufu nodded in agreement. They walked back to the house in silence. When they were back inside, Yurufu said his goodbye and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Harry then got himself some food to eat, did some nightly exercises before he turned in for the night. The next day Harry started to read the documents that were about people. He had been curious before when he saw all of the pictures but couldn't read the texts that went with them. Now that he could read the language, he wanted to know what was written about those people. Apparently the person who had written these documents had made a list of their enemies. What their names were, their personality, if they knew, and their abilities. Most of the people belonged to an organization called Akatsuki. Harry also found what seemed to be a diary. Apparently the owner of the diary was a woman named Akiho Hayashi. According to her diary, she once was part of Akatsuki as well, but had at one point abandoned them and fled to here. Here she had apparently documented everything she knew about the members of Akatsuki. It seemed she wanted to stop Akatsuki with what they were planning on doing or had been planning. Akiha's diary dated back to about 3 years ago. As Harry read the last few pages, he learned she had a child, a boy named Akio Haddock. Apparently the child was given his father's last name. This made Harry curious though. Yurufu had said he had Haddock blood in him, that he possessed the Haddock's white chakra. Had his relatives also been lying about his parents' names and his own? Akiho also wrote about an old man with a white long beard and his long white hair. She wrote she had been very sick in her last few days and that man had promised to make her better. But after a while she had noticed he didn't want to make her better, that what the man really wanted was her son. There was also a reference put in the text, a reference to some other documents. Harry searched for those documents and found them quick enough. Written within them was some information about people referring to themselves as wizards and witches and their power being called magic. It was explained that the power was similar to chakra, but not to the same extent. Harry went back to the diary. Akiha had also written a little earlier on that she had found those wizards' ministry. She had apparently infiltrated the building and found a place those wizards apparently wanted to keep secret from the rest of their population. The secrets ranged from experiments to secret spells, as they called their techniques, to predictions of the future called prophecies. Getting curious, Harry made a plan to check that place for himself. Maybe he could find some interesting and useful stuff inside their ministry. Deciding the best time to infiltrate a building would be at night when the darkness provided him with easy cover. He also could practice his infiltration skills. Seeing as those wizards' ministry was located in London, Harry made sure to get there before nightfall. The fastest way of getting there was if he had some money to pay for public transportation. Seeing as he was only a 4-year-old, he would have to use his henge to look older. To get money was going to be a risky job. He didn't want to steal money from people that rightly earned it, so he was going to steal from his so-called relatives. He was lucky that when he got to number 4 Privet Drive that no one was home. Vernon Dursley was probably at work and Dudley playing outside. Petunia must be out shopping or something else. Anyway, he had free rein. Harry made quick work of getting inside the house and getting all the money he could find. He then quickly left again. Using henge, he transformed into a young man around his 20s and also made his hair black so he won't be very well noticed. Within time he found himself in London. With still some time at hand, he decided to buy himself some clothes that actually fit him. For this he created a cage bunchen. One of him was still henged in a black-haired man in his 20s, the other was his original form, only with black hair. His ninja outfit consisted of mostly dark brown-gray colored clothes. He had a sleeveless shirt with the top part being dark brown and it would also go up covering his mouth and nose. The lower part of the shirt was a brown-grayish color. His pants were also a dark brown. There was also some skirt-like cloth around his waist connected at the front with a cross-like formation. The skirt thing was a dark gray and the cross a light gray. He also had some gloves and boots to go with the whole uniform and as last a headband to finish it. Aside from his ninja outfit, he also bought some shirts and pants for casual wear. By the time he was finished shopping it was around dinner time. He sought some decent restaurant to get himself something to eat. He dispelled his clone, keeping his older image. At around midnight he went to the place described in Akiha's diary. The place was easily found. He could actually feel the power radiating off of the place, like a beacon. He made his way inside, making use of the visitor's entryway, which was a telephone booth, functioning as an elevator. When he arrived in the hallway of the Ministry of Magic, Harry was a little surprised that there was absolutely no one around, not even a guard was there. They must think really high of themselves if they haven't even placed someone here to guard the place. Maybe they placed some traps to catch anyone who tries to infiltrate. Better be careful. Harry thought. Harry made his way to the elevator, not letting his guard waver for anything suspicious. Having read the most interesting level was the Department of Mysteries. Harry pushed on the button 9. Arriving at the Department of Mysteries, Harry made sure to mark the doors he had already come through. As Harry searched through the dom, he found quite some interesting stuff. A book about animagus transformation, several parchment scrolls describing protective magic wards, he found a book listed with spells known, a book about potions, a book about blood magics. After his little raid on the place, he quickly made his way out again. Chapter 6. Once he was back at the house again, it was already around 4 in the morning. Harry slept from the moment his head hit the pillow until his body felt ready to take on the new day. He woke up again at around 10 o'clock, ate some bread that he had bought when he had gone shopping, and then summoned Yurufu again, as he had promised the wolf he would do. Got yourself some decent clothes, eh? Yurufu said, looking at Harry with questioning eyes. I found a diary of the person who used to live here. She had written about these people who call themselves witches and wizards, and about their ministry. I got curious and decided to try out my infiltration skill. I needed some money to get to the place, so I took some from my so-called relatives. With that money, I decided to get myself some decent stuff. Harry explained, shrugging. You infiltrated these people's ministry. What exactly is a ministry? Yurufu asked, cocking his head to the side. A ministry consists of the people who govern over the rest of their community. Harry answered thoughtfully, putting a hand under his chin. I see. And you infiltrated the place they were at all on your own? Yurufu asked with a little scolding tone in his voice. HMPF, no need to get worried about me. That place was completely empty, there wasn't even any traps apart from doors mixing up. Mark the doors, and you could easily find your way out again. Harry told the old wolf. Still, it is not wise to try and infiltrate a place if you don't know what you can expect, Yurufu said. I knew about the moving doors, Harry huffed. Well then, let's start with your training. We'll have about 30 days to train. That's how long the others need in order to prepare the reverse summoning and get you through the barrier. Yurufu said, retrieving a huge scroll off his back. 30 days. It takes them 30 days. Why so long, and what's with the huge scroll? Harry asked. Like I said before, getting to the hidden continent isn't that easy. A strong barrier protects it. We need to make a safe passageway through that barrier first. For that, we need to make contact with those who oversee the barrier. As I have told you, those whose origins come from the hidden continent are allowed through, but those who are not are denied access. Yurufu started, making hand gestures to punctuate his point. He then patted the scroll. As for this scroll, it's a storage scroll. It would be easier to travel if you could put your stuff somewhere. For example, Yurufu said, making some hand seals after he had opened the scroll. He placed a paw on one of the symbols, and a puff of smoke appeared. When it cleared, a small sword lay on the scroll where the symbol was. Yurufu picked up the sword with his hand-like paw and handed it to Harry. This is a Tanto sword. The metal of the blade is specially made to utilize the white chakra through its length. Yurufu explained. This is for me? Harry's voice was filled with awe as he took the blade in his hand. Yes, it is tradition for the Haddock line to give a Tanto to their children when they are old enough to handle it. You already know how to bring forward your white chakra, now try utilize it through the blade. Yurufu replied. Harry stared to the blade for a minute before a determined look came over his face and he called forward his white chakra, channeling it through the blade he was holding. The blade lit up with the white light of his chakra. The white light chakra saber. That's how the blade is also called, Yurufu told Harry. Does it do anything special except giving off a white light? Harry asked, intrigued. The blade's main function is to draw out the white chakra, though when used correctly it can also call forward a technique called Shiroi Kiba or the white fang. To use it you have to concentrate quite a bit of white chakra into the blade and then swing it, forcing the gathered chakra off. A fang of white light will then be swung off if performed correctly. Yurufu explained. Cool. Harry exclaimed. But before I teach you any further, can you tell me what exactly you found at that ministry? Yurufu asked with a curious look in his eyes. Harry willed the white light to disappear from the blade. Yurufu then handed him a scabbard to put the blade in. It also had straps that could be used to carry it on his back. Harry put the blade in the scabbard, then pulled it on his back. He then walked over to where he had left all the stuff he had gotten from the Ministry of Magic. Quite an interesting lot, these people. Yurufu said after he had inspected some of the books. I must say they do have some useful techniques, like finding out someone's heritage, but I don't think they do much physical exercises. Harry said. Harry then showed Yurufu Akiha's diary and the page that said she had a son. In her diary she wrote she named him Akio Haddock. Harry said. You want to know if you're her son? Yurufu asked, putting 2 and 2 together. She did write about this old man that wanted her son and let her die of her sickness instead of helping her get better. Harry said. Well then, what needs to be done? Yurufu asked. The potion needs to be brewed and blood is needed, though it did say that relations can be better shown if blood of all members is added. If it's only my blood, I guess it would only show the surnames of the families I am born into. Harry said. I see. And you still want to make this potion, even if this is the case? Yurufu asked. Yes. According to Akiha's diary, her son got the last name of his father. It also told me her family name. So I do have both family names, I only need a confirmation. Harry answered. Very well. You have all the ingredients needed then? Yurufu asked. Harry checked the ingredients needed, then looked over what he had found at the ministry. I got plenty. Harry answered. Harry then started making the potion. After he had finished it, it needed to ripen for about an hour. While we wait for the potion to ripen, you can practice to start to get the Shiroi Kiba down. Yurufu said. Harry nodded and went outside to start his training. Performing the Shiroi Kiba though wasn't as easy as he had thought. Getting the blade to light up with the white chakra was easy, but to swing the chakra off was a totally different story. No matter how much he tried, every time he swung the blade the chakra kept stuck to it and only a path of light was left behind where he had swung. After the hour was over he hadn't gotten any further. With his potion ripe for the using, he went back to checking who exactly his parents were. Only his blood needed to be added to the potion. After that, he needed to place several droplets on a special kind of parchment which he found in the Ministry of Magic. It would then show him his real name and the family names of his parents. After he placed the droplets the names started to form. Surprisingly, they were written in Japanese. His own name was Akio Haddock. The family name from his mother's side was Ohayashi, confirming his suspicions. Last came the family name of his father, which was Haddock. Just what I thought, she really is my mother. Harry, or Akio as his real name was, said somewhat victoriously. What are you going to do now, though? Your mother is dead, isn't she? Yurufu asked. Continue with the plan, of course. Besides, even though my mom is dead doesn't mean my dad is. Akio answered. That's true. Well then, let's get some lunch and then you better get back to your training. Yurufu told him. Hi. Akio said as he ate something before he went back outside. Another hour went by and still he hadn't gotten any further with the Shiroi Kiba. Concentrating more white chakra into his tanto, he tried again. The blade lit up bright as before. As he swung, some of the chakra went of the blade, sparked a little, and went out. Almost, you need to concentrate a little bit harder to keep the fang in existence. Yurufu said. Akio tried again. The blade lit up brightly. He then swung the blade again. This time the fang formed and got several meters away before Akio's excitement got the better of him and he lost his concentration to make the fang keep its form. It sizzled out again. Stay concentrated, don't let anything distract you. Yurufu said. Hi. Akio said, sweat dropping nervously at the fiery look Yurufu gave him. Akio focused on his training again. Concentrating his white chakra into his tanto blade he swung it again, keeping his concentration on the form chakra fang, so it flew off the blade and hit a tree. The fang went right through and the tree fell with a loud bang on the ground. Wow. Akio exclaimed with widened eyes. Very well done. It looks like you have the Shiroi Kiba mostly under control. Let's call it a day. You'll need a rest after all that training. Yurufu said. Akio suddenly felt really tired. How long had he been practicing anyway? He knew at least an hour had gone by with no results and after that it had seemed to go a lot faster. How many hours have we been training anyway? Akio asked sleepily. I think about 4 to 5, maybe 6. Anyway, you have used up a lot of chakra. You better get some sleep to replenish it. Yurufu answered. Akio went back inside and to one of the bedrooms. He was too tired to eat some dinner first. As soon as he lay down on the bed, he was out like a light. Yurufu watched over Akio as he slept. Eventually he, too, went to sleep for the night. The days that followed Yurufu taught Akio some other useful techniques. He also taught Akio how to manipulate elemental chakra in Akio's case, lightning manipulation. Yurufu explained that, due to the Haddock's white chakra, the clan mostly had an affinity to the lightning element. Akio already knew this had to do with the white chakra's violent nature. Yurufu told Akio the basics of lightning manipulation and then told Akio to try and create his own technique. Akio did what he was told and came up with a really simple technique. But this technique you simply gathered lightning at your fingertips. Touching someone on the right places would numb the nerves it touched. Akio called the technique Raku, or lightning touch. Seeing Akio had the lightning manipulation mostly down, Yurufu taught him a stronger technique, the thunder strike, or Raiten. Raime Kimjiki. With it you could strike down your opponent from above with a very powerful lightning bolt. The technique would be even stronger if you could make use of natural lightning. It took Akio quite some time to get the technique under his control. Due to the fact that the technique was quite powerful, it also required quite a bit of chakra. Now, while he did have a natural talent in chakra control, even he had difficulty getting such a powerful technique under his control. Not to mention that he had to put a pause on his training because the lightning strike he had managed to form had caught quite a bit of attention from the civilians living in the area. Luckily, he had managed to get out of the situation without the authorities finding out he was practically living on his own. After that, Akio also came up with a more useful way to capture an enemy. He made a net of chakra strings charged with his lightning element and called it Raimate Kaijun no Jutsu, the thunder net technique. Though, after learning all those techniques, he kept practicing them to refine his control in using them. Especially his Shiroi Kiba techniques had the tendency to get out of his control, even when he had performed it right that one time. He had a lot to learn. Just knowing how to perform the technique didn't make him master in it. Chapter 7. As the month had gone by, news came that there were troubles getting through the barrier. Yurufu opted to make a teleportation seal, so it would be easier for the other wolves and he himself to travel from their home to Akio's abandoned home. I have one question though, Akio said as he watched Yurufu prepare the seal in the hallway. It consisted of strange symbols drawn upon the floor with a special mate ink that would draw in energy from all around it. They were similar to the symbols seen in the summoning circle. Ask away. What do you want to know? Yurufu asked while he continued his work. If I am able to summon you, then why won't the reverse summon work? Akio asked, a little confused. That's quite simple actually. Yurufu said, looking up from his work and stopping for a moment. Our home is actually located just outside of the elemental nations, though we have never had this kind of trouble before when being summoned. Do you think that is also a reason why you haven't been summoned in such a long time? Certainly one of the other Haddocks must have already been on the contract when it went missing. Someone could have contacted you guys about the problem. It might be possible, but there might have been other reasons as well. Anyway, let's try and find a way to solve this problem with the barrier. Yurufu replied as he finished up the final strokes of his teleportation seal. After he put the finishing touches on the teleportation seal, it glowed white for a little while before settling down. This meant the seal was now active. And just after it was, several poofs of smoke appeared. After the smoke settled down, 7 other white wolves had appeared sitting in a circle around the teleportation seal. So this is the haddock cub you told us about. He's cute. A female wolf said, walking forward towards him. Ah, Setsuna. This is Akio. Yurufu said as he introduced Akio to her and the rest of the wolves. He indeed is cute, though a little scrawny. Another female wolf replied, looking at Setsuna. She then turned to Akio. You can call me Tama. The wolf said. I am not surprised he would be scrawny. Yurufu, didn't you say he lived all on his own and caught his own food? Another wolf, this time male, asked the alpha wolf. You're correct, Akira. Yurufu answered. I'm Akira, as Yurufu just said. It's nice to meet you. Akira said to Akio. Akio just nodded, waiting for the others to introduce themselves. The name is Hama. Said the wolf to the left of Yurufu. You can call me Kana. A female wolf said, looking him over. I'm Mitsuho, nice meeting you, little one. Another male wolf said. Yo, call me Ran. The last male wolf said, holding up a paw in greeting. It's nice meeting you all. Akio said, bowing politely as he had read somewhere in a book about Japanese culture. In the month time Yurufu had been training him, and while the others had worked on the reverse summoning, Akio had also been taught how to speak the Japanese language so that communication between Yurufu and him would become easier. They were currently discussing the problem with the barrier. So what exactly is the problem with the barrier? Yurufu asked, with a look of worry on his face. We aren't sure yet. We haven't been able to even communicate with those guarding the barrier. Setsuna answered, also looking quite worried. What about bringing him to our home first and then do the reverse summoning? Yurufu asked. I don't think that would do the trick either. In either ways we need to make contact with the guardians first. Akira explained, looking unsettled as well. Then I suggest we continue in trying to make contact with the guardians. In the meantime, we'll train Akio here so he'll be better prepared for the shinobi world. Yurufu replied. Fine with me, Akira nodded. Sorry if we can't get you to your father right now, kiddo, Setsuna said to Akio, a sad expression on her face. It's no problem. You are at least trying to get me there. Akio said, a smile creeping up on his face. We'll start with ninjutsu, since you already are quite proficient with ninjutsu, Yurufu said. Yurufu then nodded to Mitsuho, who walked forward and took over. As you probably know, Jinjutsu is created when a ninja extends their chakra flow through the central nervous system of their opponent to control their mind, thereby affecting their 5 senses. Those with very precise chakra control and very high intelligence have an easier time casting Jinjutsu. Mitsuho explained. The Haddock won't have much trouble casting Jinjutsu if they are trained enough in it. Setsuna said. We'll start with some Jinjutsu that require hand seals, but eventually we are going to teach you how to cast a Jinjutsu without the use of the hand seals, Mitsuho explained. The first Jinjutsu I am going to teach you is called Mbohakushoku. This Jinjutsu is quite useful if you need to make a quick escape as it makes the enemy hear the howl of a wolf all around them. This will also, most of the time, distract the enemy to the point they won't know your location if you get away from their sight quickly enough. Mitsuho explained. Learning Jinjutsu was a lot easier now that Akio had a good teacher showing him how it was actually done. He was a fast learner in it too. It was all about precise chakra control and a lot of imagination. Akio had actually quite some fun making up his own Jinjutsu. He had even figured out that he could dispel an opponent's Jinjutsu by placing his own Jinjutsu over it. Next, Akio studied the information he got from the Ministry of Magic. He became quite interested in some of their spells, but there were also quite a lot of spells that were totally bullshit. He wondered how those people had ever come up with them. The more he studied them, the more he found out that they probably didn't use much physical exercises. There were spells to help them for every little thing in the household. Seriously, he wondered if those wizards ever encountered a shinobi if they could ever win. Certainly they would lose with that attitude. As Akio read on, he found out that instead of hand seals, the wizards used a medium to channel their magic through. In most cases this medium would be a stick, which they called a wand, with a magical component inside of it. Magic was like chakra, an energy within them. The wand helped them draw that energy out. Though Akio didn't have a wand or any magic inside of him, he was still curious enough to try some of their spells out. This he did by trying to convert them into jutsu. This took him quite some time since he had to properly study the spells to know exactly what they were supposed to do. Then, he had to find the correct hand seals that would replace the wand movements, and finally he had to find out how much chakra they actually required to function. As he was converting the spells to jutsu, he realized it was only natural that he wouldn't be able to do most of the elemental spells that had an element he hadn't learned to use yet. The only element that he could use right now was the lightning release. The next thing he studied was what the wizards called legilimency and its counter-occlumency, which were arts that made use of the mind. With legilimency, you could infiltrate the opponent's mind and pry loose valuable information. With occlumency, you could protect your own mind so that if an enemy tried to get into it to pry loose information it wouldn't work. Akio had managed to create a very usable tool out of them without the opponent even noticing anything. He could use the legilimency ability to its most primary use. He didn't even need to have eye contact with his enemy either. With this ability, he could pick up the thoughts of everyone in a 50-meter radius. Not only would this give away an opponent's location, but you could also pick up the opponent's strategy if he was thinking about it. The next ability that he found interesting was the animagus transformation, the ability to change completely into an animal. This also took him quite some time, since transforming oneself into an animal was quite complicated and difficult to accomplish. The results, however, were quite fascinating. As it was, after Akio finally managed to actually transform into an animal, he found out that his animal was a white wolf. There were some other aspects he found out. The animagus transformation transformed a person into the complete animal, meaning it was different than a simple henge. Not only was one smell that of an animal, but their chakra signature became that of an animal as well, making it a very useful disguise. A year had passed by, and Akio had just turned 6. The wolves still hadn't come any closer to contacting the guardians, making Akio a little worried. He wondered if he would ever see his father. Despite all of this, his training was still going rather well. Irufu made him make another lightning elemental attack at the end of that year, though this time he wanted him to make a jutsu that he could actually attack with. One to attack with, eh? Alright, no problem. Akio had replied as he sat down on a rock to think. A jutsu for attack. I already have the thunder strike, that one is pretty strong. All I could think up last time was gathering lightning at my fingertips to paralyze my enemy and make a net with chakra strings to capture my enemies with. Again, the lightning acted as a tranquilizer. Akio thought. How can I make the most use of lightning to attack with? Akio gathered some lightning at his fingertips, watching it as he let it spring from finger to finger as he was thinking. He then let the lightning gather between all his fingers. It created a small ball. It was then that an idea popped into his head. Akio relaxed his fingers, but to his disappointment when he did that the little ball of electricity dissipated. Akio tried again and again until the little ball would stay into existence. He then tried to throw the ball, but yet again it dissipated. The ball of electricity to be thrown. That's quite interesting, but will it be powerful? Mitsuho questioned. Not sure. We'll have to see for ourselves, won't we? Tama replied. For days, Akio practiced to get his jutsu under control, but it would still dissipate on every try. Eventually, Akio tried instead of throwing the little ball of electricity to shoot it forward by pushing his chakra out through his arm and hand. When he tried this, the little ball didn't immediately dissipate and he had a little bit more control over it. Though it still took him about a month or 3 to complete the technique, the end result was an electrical ball that shot from his hand. It wasn't all that powerful, but had the potency to shoot right through a tree and would be able to kill someone if aimed at the heart. The strongest point of the attack was its great speed. The ball of electricity was so fast it would reach its target before they even notice it. He decided to name the technique Denkick. After the completion of the technique, Akio was trained in Taijutsu and how to use his weapons properly. He was also given his second weapon on his birthday, even though he protested they didn't have to give him a gift. The present was a Kusari Fundo with one of the weights pointed to a spike. This weapon was also made from the special metal that could utilize his white chakra. Moreover, Akio noticed that learning Taijutsu and how to use weapons wasn't as easy as he had thought. He had actually a lot more trouble with it than learning ninjutsu, which apparently came more naturally to him. Probably because he had such a natural control on his chakra. The jutsu and weapon use didn't make use of one's chakra. It made more use of one's body and its senses. The body had to be more in shape to get the most results out of it. Ninjutsu made more use of one's chakra, but even then you have to have a lot of stamina to keep going. It would take him more time to get the taijutsu under his control than it would ninjutsu, but the wolves told him that once he was used to it that it would come naturally to him. He just needed to get into shape. He noticed that you'll only get good at taijutsu if you worked hard for it. Chapter 8. Just about a month after his 6th birthday, Irufu had decided to take him to the wolves' home to teach him something special. Although he had said it would take quite some time to accomplish, he also felt that Akio didn't have to feel down about it if it didn't go as quick as he wanted it to be. As Akio arrived, he looked around with amazement in his eyes. Their place looked wonderful. The wolves lived in a big forest with their home being a big cave at an open space. It made Akio want to go and explore. You can explore later. Let me first tell you what we want to teach you. Yurufu told Akio, who immediately paid attention to the old and wise wolf. What we want to teach you is called Sage Mode. The essential part of going into Sage Mode is being able to draw in natural energy. Yurufu explained. Natural energy? Akio questioned. It is the energy of nature itself. If you are able to draw in natural energy and balance it out with your own chakra, it will initiate Sage Mode. In Sage Mode you'll have several advantages. The user's physical strength, speed, stamina, reflexes, and durability dramatically increase. This also makes the user's ninjutsu, jinjutsu and taijutsu more powerful. Also, one's senses increase and it makes it possible to sense chakra. Yurufu explained. That sounds cool. Akio exclaimed. As cool as it sounds, this training is more difficult than any of the trainings you had ever before. Yurufu warned. Is it that difficult? Akio wondered. Indeed it is, especially for an energetic child. Yurufu replied. I am not that energetic. I can sit still if I want to. Akio pouted. Good, that will be the exercise we'll start with, said Yurufu. What does sitting still to do with training? Akio wondered. Everything, kid. Everything. You can't draw in natural energy while you are moving. You have to be completely still, become one with nature itself. Yurufu explained. Really? Well, if that's the case, Akio said, then sat down and tried not to move an inch. Sitting completely still, though, wasn't as easy as he had thought. It was almost like he wasn't even allowed to breathe. Not so easy as you had thought, eh? Let's make this exercise a little bit more difficult for you by actually making you gather the natural energy. Yurufu said. So, how do I gather natural energy? Akio asked. Yurufu explained the principles of gathering the natural energy and how he could balance it out with his own chakra. He also explained that the natural energy had to be even with those of the spiritual and physical energies that make up a person's chakra. Even a little bit of difference could affect a person badly. Though not as badly as with the toads, as Yurufu told him, if you lost complete control over the natural energy you would turn into a wolf and lose your mind, becoming a mindless monster that lived only on instinct. That was most of the reason why Yurufu didn't want Akio to train alone, so that if he started to lose control, one of the wolves could whack all the natural energy out of him. Even though Akio had precise control over his chakra, he still wasn't able to balance his chakra with natural energy. I told you not to expect to learn this quickly. For you to be able to enter Sage Mode you need a considerable amount of chakra. You do have quite a bit for your age, though it seems it isn't quite enough to be able to perfect the Sage Mode. It still needs to mature quite a bit, Yurufu told him. Another year went by. He was 7 now, and it seemed one of the wolves finally managed to break through whatever caused them trouble contacting the guardians of the barrier. About time. I was worried I would never be able to meet my dad. Akio said. Well, you no longer need to worry then. Gather your stuff quickly. We'll leave in a few minutes. Setsuna replied. Akio did what he was told and gathered all his stuff. From the documents, scrolls, and books to his weapons, clothes, and other possessions he had collected from time to time. He put most of it in his storage scroll, leaving only some kunai, shuriken, his kusari fundo and his white light chakra saber on him. A few minutes later he was being instructed on what he had to do. He had to sit down in a meditative pose and wait for them to summon him to the place they would arrive at. It was then that all 8 white wolves disappeared in a puff of smoke. He waited patiently and it didn't take long for a strange feeling to settle over him. As he opened his eyes again he was surprised he was still in a forest, though this forest seemed to be different than the wolves' home. Where exactly are we? Akio wondered aloud. In one of the forests near to where the Hada clan used to live, though I'm not sure if it has a name now or not. It has been such a long time since we white wolves has been summoned, as you know, so long that I myself was still a cub. Naturally, I have never been to this place. Yurufu answered. Wait, then how are we going to find my dad? Akio asked in wonderment. Search the country and sniff him out. Ran joked, though Akio didn't really find it funny. Don't worry, cub. We'll find him. Setsuna assured him. Akio nodded as a little happiness returned to him. He at least had made his way to the hidden continent. I'm glad that's over and done with. Tenten sighed. I agree, but we're not home yet. Let's make it a race. First one who gets to the gates wins. If I lose, I'll do 3,000 push-ups with Guy-sensei sitting on my back. Lee exclaimed. Yosh. And if I lose, I'll do twice as many with you on my back, my youthful student. Guy countered. Will you two stop with those ridiculous challenges? Niji said, but his attention wasn't on the 2 spandex-clad people. What is it, Niji? Is it an enemy? Tenten asked. I and Lee immediately returned to being serious. I'm not sure. I sense at least 9 chakra sources, though one of them is that of a child. The others don't seem human. Nenji said. A child? What is a child doing in these parts of the forest? You can't sense any adults near them? Guy asked. No, only those in human aid are near the child. We should take a closer look. Niji said. The rest nodded in agreement and they sped off to where Niji sensed the child and those 8 others. Not much later, they found out that the 8 inhuman beings seemed to be a pack of wolves, though the wolves looked a little different from any other normal wolf. They were bigger than your average wolf and all of them had white fur. Their paws seemed to be more human-shaped and they were probably able to form hand seals with them. They look like summons. Niji said, surprised, as he crouched down on a branch somewhere close to the kid and the wolves who were walking down the road below them. If they are summons, then who summoned them? And why are they with the kid? Tenten asked. Before someone could answer her questions, though, Guy let out a cry of surprise and dashed towards the kid. Hey Kakashi. What happened to you? You look like a kid again. Who did this to you? Guy rambled off, shaking the startled child. Kakashi-sensei. Lee exclaimed, then ran also to the child and started rambling of questions. Tenten and Niji looked on, confused. They then took a closer look to the child. The child had silvery white hair and emerald green eyes. His outfit was mostly brown-gray tinted and he also had his mouth covered in the same fashion as Kakashi. I must say, he does have a lot features in common with Kakashi-sensei, but if I remember correctly Kakashi-sensei's eye color is a dark gray. Tenten said. Back off. One of the wolves suddenly barked out as he pushed Guy off of the kid. The other wolves started to growl and surrounded the kid in a protective circle. The kid himself was looking on and confusing from his position on the ground, his eyes wide. Hey? Kakashi, you don't remember anything. I'm your eternal rival, Mido Guy. Guy continued on, oblivious to the fact that the kid wasn't Kakashi at all. Niji face-palmed at that and walked forward. Guy-sensei, I don't think that kid is Kakashi-sensei. Look closely at him and see if you can spot the difference, he said. Guy squeezed his eyes in concentration as he peered closely at the boy in front of him, even though the wolves were still watching him warily. I don't see any difference. He still looks like Kakashi used to be at that age. Guy exclaimed. Niji and Tenten face-palmed again. What eye color does Kakashi-sensei have? Niji asked exasperated. Dark gray, why? Guy asked as he peered at the boy again. Emerald green eyes peered back at him. Ah, he has emerald green eyes. Guy gasped in surprise as he finally noticed the difference. And he notices that now? Tenten thought in exasperation. What's your name, kid? Niji asked. The wolves seemed to have backed down a little, though they still were watching them warily. Akio. Hadaka-Akio. The boy answered. Niji, Tenten, Lee and even Guy looked surprised at that answer. This Kakashi person you were talking about, he goes by the name of Haddock as well, doesn't he? Akio asked. Ah, Ano, may I ask why you're walking down this path all by yourself? What are you doing here anyway? Niji asked, surprise still edged on his face. I'm not all by myself and I'm looking for my dad. Akio answered, motioning to the wolves. Don't tell me you're the one who summoned those wolves. Tenten said in surprise. Be sure it did. The oldest of the group smirked. That's to be expected of the son of my eternal rival. Guy laughed. The wolves and Akio looked blank-faced at the eccentricities of Guy. Better not pay any attention to him when he's like that. Tenten sighed. We'd better sort this out back at the village. Niji suggested. Tenten and Lee nodded in agreement. Yosh. Let's find my eternal rival and ask who his lovely lady is to have birthed this child. Guy shouted and ran off. Boy, Mado, Tenten shouted after him. Better follow him before he gets too far away. Niji sighed. It seemed Lee had already ran off after their sensei. Niji turned to Akio and his wolf summons, who had already climbed on the back of the oldest wolf and nodded to Niji. Lead the way. The kid said. Tenten and Niji ran off to pursue Lee, and their sensei and Akio and his wolves followed them closely. It didn't take long for them to reach the village, not with the speed they were going at. Who's the kid with you? Katetsu asked as they approached the gate. And what's with those wolves? Izumo asked, eyeing them warily. It seemed my eternal rival caught himself a pretty lady and got himself a child. Where is he anyway? Guy rambled off looking all around him. Katetsu and Izumo looked surprised and confused to Guy at his exclamation. Akio in the meantime jumped off of the wolf he had been riding. Looks like this is the end of the ride, Yurufu. I think these people can be trusted. You should rest up at your homes. I'll summon you again when I'll need you. Akio addressed to the wolves, smiling down at them. If you are sure, Akio. The oldest nodded. Take care, kiddo. A female wolf said. Don't take too long to summon us again. It was quite nice to be in your company. Another wolf said. Then as one, all 8 wolves disappeared in a puff of smoke. Chapter 9. Akio followed the people who brought him to their village, Kanahagakure, or the village hidden in the leaves. They introduced themselves as Tenten, Niji, Lee and Guy. Akio had been surprised when Guy had jumped so suddenly at him, rambling about him being this Kakashi person. When he had told them his name, they seemed to be surprised at his family name. Noticing this made him feel more at ease. It seemed they were familiar with someone bearing the name of Haddock. If so, he might be a little bit closer at finding his dad. The one named Guy knocked on the door to the office of their leader, or so they had told him. They entered as a woman's voice told them to from the other side of the door. As Akio followed the team of 4 inside, he took a look at the room and its inhabitants. There seemed to be already someone present in front of the leader of the village. To Akio's surprise, the leader of this village was a woman. The woman seemed to be around her 20s, had blonde hair and some kind of jewel embedded in her forehead. She was seated behind the desk. Next to the blonde-haired woman was another, who had short black hair and was holding a pig. Though the other 2 were obviously important, the person who brought the most attention to himself was the silvery white-haired man standing in front of the desk. He obviously had had a conversation with the blonde-haired woman before they came in. Akio stared at the man, observing him more closely. The man's left eye was covered up with his headband. Not much else of his facial features could be seen as his mouth and nose were covered by a worn blue mask. The man's single visible eye, though, was focused on him, staring just as intensely back. Those eyes, it can't be. Kakashi thought as he stared in the deep emerald eyes of the child Guy and his team had brought with them. Those eyes reminded him of her. How long had it been since he had last thought about her? Can anyone tell me who this kid is and why he looks remarkably like a child version of Kakashi here? The blonde-haired woman asked at last, making Akio break eye contact with the white-haired man. Ah, we found him near the border. He told us his name is Haddock Akio. Tenten answered. Don't tell me, is he really? Kakashi blinked at Tenten's answer. He was speechless. Could this child really be his son? Had she really birthed a son? Before he could say anything, the blonde-haired woman already spoke. Haddock. You found him near the border, you say. What was he doing there all by himself? The blonde-haired woman asked. He wasn't exactly by himself, had at least 8 wolf summons with him. Niji stated. You say he can use the summoning jutsu? The white-haired man asked in surprise before Niji could continue. Hi, there was no doubt. One of the wolves confirmed it. Niji said. That answers one of my questions, but you still haven't told us why he was there. The blonde-haired woman asked. He said he was looking for his father. Tenten answered. Why didn't you ever tell me you had a girlfriend, Kakashi? Came the shout of Guy as he ran up to the white-haired man he just called Kakashi. What? If even Guy sees the likeliness, then there is no doubt. He really is as Kakashi thought. Right now, the elder Haddock looked like a trapped deer. Sweat was trailing down his face and a slight blush just visible from beneath his mask. Akio just looked on, confused. A cough from the blonde-haired woman brought their attention back to her. I don't care if Kakashi had a secret girlfriend or not, but we do need to confirm the boy's identity. A blood test should be able to verify if the boy is really Kakashi's son. In the meantime, Kakashi, I want you to watch over the boy. That'll be your next mission. The blonde-haired woman said in a serious and firm voice. Hi, Kakashi replied, although he still seemed a little unsure and nervous. The son? How am I even supposed to take care of a child? He thought in turmoil. But. Shizune, I put you in charge of the blood test. Make sure that it's done quickly. The blonde-haired woman commanded. Hi. The black-haired woman with the pig, called Shizune, replied. She then put the pig down and walked to the door, motioning to Kakashi to follow. Kakashi walked up to Akio and took the boy's hand into his own before following Shizune out of the door. Akio looked up with surprise, but Kakashi wasn't looking down at him. Instead his gaze was fixed in front of him. Akio had a feeling that a blood test wasn't really needed. That he had already found his father if he took in the reactions of this man before him. Though he guessed it was necessary for those who ran this village to want confirmation. They were just making sure he wasn't an enemy. Their walk ended at what seemed to be the village's hospital. Shizune instructed to a pair of medics of what had been tasked to her, and soon he had a needle plugged into his arm, drawing some of his blood. He rubbed the spot afterwards. We'll try to get the results as soon as possible, but it might take a day or two. One of the medics told them after they were done getting the blood. Kakashi just nodded without saying anything. Akio hopped off the bed he had been seated on and walked towards Kakashi. He reached for Kakashi's hand, but before he could put his own hand into the man's, Kakashi already had it in a gentle grip. Akio looked up again, but Kakashi still wasn't meeting his gaze. The elder Haddock was still deep in thought. A son? What was he supposed to do? Not that he wasn't happy to have a son, but this was quite sudden. In a daze he led the boy to his apartment, not even noticing the onlookers. Akio noticed surprised looks on the people's faces as they passed by, but it seemed Kakashi was ignoring them and continued to walk to wherever their destination was. Their walk ended as they came to an apartment complex. Kakashi grabbed some keys out of one of his pockets and opened the door of an apartment, which was obviously his. He then led Akio inside and closed the door behind him. Once inside, he let go of Akio's hand and plopped down on the couch in the living room with a sigh. So what happened between you and mom? Akio asked carefully. Kakashi looked up surprised, obviously not expecting that question. He could tell. He thought, surprised, looking up at the boy. No. His son. I can tell from your reactions you don't need confirmation. Akio clarified. Yes, he didn't need confirmation. Akio's eyes had told him enough. Not only his eyes, no, all of his features told him the truth of his parentage. Like he looked a lot like his own father, Akio was a sparkling image of him, but with the eyes of his mother. It made him sad thinking of her, but knowing he had a son brought a sudden happiness to him. Kakashi sighed again and looked down, sadness shone in his visible eye. He then looked back up at him, and Akio was surprised that a sudden spark shone in that single eye. Ah, I guess you have the right to know. Kakashi then said, motioning for him to come closer. Akio obeyed and walked up to him. Kakashi pulled him on his lap and closed his eye, probably to start to recall the past. It all started with a mission. I was asked to take down some rogue ninja that had infiltrated the Land of Fire, tasked to take down the daimyo. I intercepted them, chasing after them as they tried to escape from the country. They came as far as the Hidden Grass village. It was there we clashed for a final time. I eventually won the battle, but it hadn't been an easy one, and I had been hurt badly. I'm not sure exactly what happened next. I had passed out because of my injuries. Next time I woke up, it was to the face of the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Shiny red hair, ablaze like fire and eyes that looked like pure jewels, the purest of emeralds I've ever seen. Kakashi stated. From the way Kakashi spoke of her, Akio could tell he had loved her greatly. He turned his attention back to the story as he continued to listen on. Seeing that I was awake, she told me I had been out for over a day. She then introduced herself as Ohayashi Akiha. Kakashi then said. Akio looked on surprised, although he had already known from his reactions that Kakashi was his father, but hearing the name of his mother coming from Kakashi's lips confirmed it even further. I see you know your mother's name. What happened to her? Kakashi asked out of curiosity. According to her diary, she had been sick and died when I was only 1 year old. Akio answered. I see, so you never knew her. Then with who did you grow up with? Kakashi asked, a quizzical expression in his eye. You were telling me what happened between you and mom. Don't change the subject. Akio pouted. Alright, but you better tell me afterwards. Kakashi said as he ruffled Akio's hair while smiling down at him. Akio nodded and sat to attention again, waiting for Kakashi to continue. It took me some time to recover, a week or so. In that time I got to know Akiha a little bit better. After my recovery, I had to go back home to report in. However, after that, every time I had a mission close to the hidden grass village I went to visit her. This went on for about a year, but then one day I went to the hidden grass village intending to ask her to marry me. Kakashi told, then fell into silence. Then what happened? Akio asked curiously, noticing the sadness displayed on Kakashi's face. She wasn't there. I asked around, but they told me she left and they didn't know when she would be back. She hadn't gone on a mission though. I returned a few times, but every time she still wasn't there. I gave up after a year, though I still kept in check to hear news about her. It never came. This is the first time in years she was brought to the front of my mind. Kakashi answered. The silence fell again. Kakashi seemed lost in thought once more. I never would have thought she became pregnant from just that one time. Kakashi said as he looked down at Akio. To tell you the truth, I'm not really sure what to do. Akio threw himself around Kakashi's neck, hugging him. Tears started to stream down his cheeks as he couldn't hold them down any longer. He just wanted to be held, to be loved by his father. Kakashi was surprised by Akio's sudden action, but understood him without him saying anything. The boy wanted him to just be there for him. He wanted to be loved, and Kakashi had a sudden suspicion that his son never had known a human's affection. Kakashi returned the hug and stroked the child's hair to try and comfort him. He didn't know how long they sat like that, but when the crying had stopped he was surprised to see that Akio had fallen asleep. He must have been exhausted from traveling. Kakashi thought as he smiled down at the boy. He stood up from the couch, cradling Akio in his arms while making sure that he wouldn't wake up. He then walked to his bedroom and laid Akio down on his bed. After taking off his shoes, he pulled the covers over him. He then went to the kitchen to get a quick bite since he hadn't eaten dinner yet. Akio hadn't either, for that matter, but he didn't really want to wake up his son. After eating something, he went back to his bedroom, watched Akio sleep for a while, before he decided to lay out a futon next to his bed to sleep in. While the boy was obviously his son, he still wasn't quite used to the idea. He was still sorting out his emotions. It was not every day you suddenly become a father. Normally fathers met their children as newborns. It was not like that they'll just walk into your life. He wasn't quite tired enough to just go to sleep, so he decided to just watch over the boy for now and try to sort out the mess inside his head. He dressed for the night and laid down on his futon. Chapter 10. Kakashi woke up from the sun shining in his bedroom window. He couldn't remember having fallen asleep. He noticed that Akio had cuddled himself against him, the boy's hands with a firm hold on his shirt. Kakashi wondered when the child had crawled in his futon with him. As he remembered the boy had been sleeping in his bed and he had decided to sleep on the ground in a futon. Kakashi sighed. It seemed he wouldn't be moving pretty soon as he didn't want to wake the boy. Though a smile crept upon his face as he watched the child sleeping peacefully. He still couldn't believe that he was a father now. He also was still wondering how his son's life has been since the boy had told him his mother had died when he was just 1. With whom did he grow up with and how was he treated? From what he could tell, when his son hugged him in an emotional bout, he was sure the kid had never felt loved. It made him sad and angry at the same time. It seemed he still hadn't regained a grip on his emotions. It was about an hour later that Akio finally started to stir awake. As Akio started to wake, it took him a little while to remember the happenings of yesterday. As he blinked open his eyes he noticed he was still laying close to his dad. In fact, his father had wrapped his arms around him and was watching him with his single visible eye, the other eye was closed. A scar was running through it, making him wonder if the eye was still functional. As he stared back his father gave him an eye smile. "Aheyo." His father greeted him. The man then sat up and pulled him on his lap. "Let's get freshen up, shall we? We didn't really get the chance to do so yesterday," his father said, scratching the back of his head in a sheepish manner. As Akio looked his father up and down he could tell what he meant. He was dirty all over and he even spotted some dried blood on his clothing. Akio nodded and followed his dad as he led him to the bathroom. The bathroom wasn't that big, but big enough to fit a shower as well as a bathtub. After having taken their clothes off, they settled inside the bathtub. To Akio's surprise, his father had filled the bathtub with warm water. The boy wasn't quite used to this. His aunt and uncle had never even filled the bathtub for him to wash him. They hadn't used warm water, either. They always washed him with ice-cold water from a bucket and they used a sponge to scrub him clean. He hadn't gotten a bath often either, just once a week. When he finally left them he hadn't the luxury of a bathroom and he was always licked clean by one of his wolf summons or cleaned himself in a stream of water. This unexpected experience kind of made him feel uneasy. Though he must say the warm water was kind of feeling good. Kakashi immediately noticed the uneasiness within his son. It made him wonder how the boy normally washed himself. The elder Haddock's emotions were still in turmoil and with the rate it was going, he wondered how long it would take him before he had himself back under control. "You said a kid had died when you were only 1. Who raised you, if it wasn't her? Kakashi wanted to know. Akio looked up to his uncovered face. It wasn't often that Kakashi was so open, yet this was his son. His son deserved to know his father's face, so for him he won't cover it like he did for everyone else. Akio looked quite disturbed, so Kakashi pulled his son closer in a comforting hug. It was then that Akio finally started to tell his father his life story. According to Mum's diary, there was this old guy that seemed interested in me. He pretended to help her get better because she was very sick. Though, after a time, she wasn't getting better and she noticed he wasn't planning to help her at all. He was just waiting for her to die so he could take me. After Mum's death, that old man placed me with a nice couple by the names of Lily and James Potatho. I didn't get to stay long with them, only about 3 months. They were killed, but somehow I survived the attack. Akio stated as he lifted some of the bangs covering his forehead to reveal a most curious scar carved just above his right eye. It was slightly faded, but still visible. Kakashi lifted his hand and traced the lightning bolt shape with his thumb. This scar is the only reminder of that attack. Afterwards that old man decided it was safer for me to be placed with my so-called aunt and uncle. They despised anything abnormal and barely gave me anything beyond the most basic things. Akio said, then fell silent. Kakashi could tell there was more that the boy wasn't telling him. He seemed shaken by even telling him this much. What had his son been going through for him to be this shaken? That bastard. Did he know how those people were? What did they even do to him? Kakashi asked himself. Then aloud, he said, there is more, isn't there? What have they been doing to you? He was slightly shaken up himself as he thought about the previous life his son lived. Aunt noticed very early on how smart I was. She forced me to walk and as soon as I could and made me do all the work in the house. It didn't matter if I hurt myself. If I did something wrong, she would scold me. Akio let out. He was brought to tears and sniffing while he was telling his story. Kakashi was surprised himself when he noticed that tears were starting to trickle down his own cheeks. That bastard, I'm gonna kill him if I ever see him. Kakashi thought. He had completely lost control over his emotions, something that had never happened before. It was true that if he ever came into contact with that old man he would kill him. Kakashi held his son even closer to him and started to draw comforting circles on his back. Akio calmed down a little and continued his story. I wasn't even allowed to go outside the house until I turned 3, and even then it was only to tend to their garden. When I turned 4 they were forced to give me some more free space to look good in the eyes of their neighbors. It was then that I finally found a way to escape. I had found this house that Mom had used when she lived there. She had left a lot of documents there and among them were scrolls about chakra and how to control it. So I started to teach myself. I also found the willed summoning contract and it was with their help I was able to get here. Akio finished. Kakashi felt a little relieved at knowing his son hadn't lived with those people for long. I see. I hope your life has been better ever since then. Kakashi sighed. At this Akio smiled and nodded. Much better. Yurufu and the others taught me lots of stuff. He beamed. That's good to know. Kakashi smiled back at his son. He then proceeded to wash the boy and then himself clean from all the dirt and blood. At one point in the washing process, his son asked him about his left eye and he opened it to show Akio the Sharingan. Sharingan. Akio gasped, making Kakashi blink in surprise. So you know about the Sharingan? Kakashi asked. Yeah, one of the documents mentioned Kekkei Genkai. Though, I thought you had to be born in a clan who has the Sharingan. Akio wondered. That's true. However, when I lost my own eye in battle, a friend gave it to me as a last present. Kakashi answered, smiling sadly. After they were done bathing, Akio took out his storage scroll and took out a set of clean casual clothes. Kakashi was kind of surprised his son had put clothes in a storage scroll. Normally, storage scrolls were mainly used to store weapons in. What else have you stored up in that scroll? Kakashi asked curiously. Akio looked up in surprise and stared a little while at the elder haddock. Then he grinned and summoned the rest of the items out of the scroll. Kakashi was startled at what all came out of the scroll. It seemed that everything his son owned was stowed up in it. Aside from the clothes there were the documents his son had mentioned before, though there seemed to be a lot more books and scrolls amongst them that hadn't been mentioned. There were also some weapons. As he looked over the weapons his son owned, he was surprised to see a white light chakra saber amongst them. He picked it up and pulled the blade out of its scabbard. Experimentally, he let the blade light up as he had once done with his father's chakra blade. The blade did exactly what he was used to. Where did you get this? Kakashi asked. This kind of blade was very rare. He had been sure his father's blade had been the last one of its kind. Irufu gave it to me. He also taught me how to properly utilize the white chakra. Akio said with a grin. Now Kakashi looked at the child in confusion. There was a way to utilize the white chakra other than just sharpening the white light chakra saber. His own father had never told him anything like this. He had mentioned the white chakra, yes, and had told him it had mysterious qualities to it, but had never told him what those qualities could be. Now here, right in front of him, was his own son talking about the white chakra as if he knew more about it than his elder did. It made him kind of jealous. Made him yearn to learn more about it. It was his heritage too, after all. Yurufu told me it had been years since they last had been summoned. Apparently their summoning contract had gotten lost. Akio said as he noticed his confusion. What has that to do with the white chakra? Kakashi asked, still confused. Apparently they have taught every generation of Haddock how to utilize the white chakra. Since the contract scroll got lost, the knowledge of the white chakra dwindled down as well. Akio shrugged. I see, so they were kind of the secret keepers to the Haddock's white chakra, and since the clan has thinned out so much there came a time that knowledge wasn't passed down from parent to child. Kakashi concluded. I guess so. Akio said. Kakashi looked back down at the chakra blade. He had it still lit up, though the longer he kept his white chakra flowing, the more he started to feel a tingling in his left eye, where the Sharingan was. He stopped the flow and looked back at his son. Now he was curious as to what the white chakra could do exactly. So, what exactly is the secret behind the Haddock's white chakra? Kakashi asked with a gleam in his eye. Akio blinked before he started to grin. Is there some private training ground around here? Then I can summon the wolves. They know everything. Akio said. Kakashi thought for a moment. There were a lot of training grounds in Konoha, but most were accessible to all shinobi. Only clans had training grounds of their own in order to train their secret techniques. Then it came to him. That he hadn't thought about that before was a mystery to the elder man. The Haddock's private grounds were still open to him, after all. He hadn't been there in years, since there were too many painful memories linked to that place. Though, he guessed that this would be as good a time as any to face his past. Family secrets were to be kept within the family after all. Chapter 11. After they had taken a quick bite to eat, Kakashi led Akio all the way to the Haddock's family compound, ignoring all the looks thrown his way. Finally they got to the gate. The compound wasn't that big, at least not as big as the other clans' compounds, though there was more than one house within the walls surrounding the place. This should do. The training grounds are further in the back. Kakashi told the boy. What is this place? The houses here look totally run down. Akio said as he looked all around him. The Haddock compound. Most of the houses have been empty since even before I was born. I used to live in that big house in the middle. Kakashi said, pointing to said house. Were some of the other houses ever used? Akio asked curiously. Yes. Servants lived within the compound. They were paid to keep the place clean. Kakashi answered. What about other family members? Akio asked. There weren't that much of the Haddock left. By the time I was born it was only me and my father. Kakashi answered, shaking his head. Kakashi then led the younger Haddock to the training ground and then turned to him. When they arrived, Akio bit his thumb and performed the seals of the summoning technique. Kuchius no Jutsu. Akio said. 8 white wolves appeared with a puff of smoke. Kakashi looked at them with interest. He knew Akio was capable of using the summoning technique, knew he could summon 8 at the same time according to Niji, but he didn't know they were quite this big. I see you found your father. The oldest looking wolf said, looking with an inspecting eye at him. Kakashi nodded at the old wolf. Akio told me you hold the secrets of the white chakra. Kakashi said. That's correct. So I can assume that aside from the scroll gone missing that the teachings of the white chakra got most part forgotten? The old wolf asked. Ah. There was a time that the Haddock line got almost extinct. Nowadays it's only me and my son. Kakashi answered. Have you still been given the white light chakra saber? The old wolf then asked. I have, though it broke quite some time ago. Kakashi answered. I see, we'll need to solve that problem pretty soon. Let us introduce ourselves properly first. I am Yurufu, leader of us 8 white wolves. The old wolf, now named Yurufu, said. I'm Akira. A male wolf to the old wolf's left said. The name's Hama. Another male wolf said. I am called Kana. A female wolf this time said. Name's Mitsuho. Yet another male told him. You can call me Ran. A very youthful and energetic male wolf said. I'm Satsuna. Said a motherly looking female wolf calmly. And I am Tama. The last one of the 8 white wolves said, this one another female. It's nice to meet you all. I'm Kakashi. Kakashi introduced himself to the wolves politely. You do seem to know at least about the white chakra. Do you know how to mold it? Yurufu asked, getting to business immediately. Not really. All I know is how to charge the white light chakra saber. Kakashi answered, scratching the back of his head in slight uncomfortable embarrassment since his own son seemed to know more about his heritage. I see, then molding the white chakra won't be too much trouble. Remember the feeling you get while charging the white light chakra saber and try to mold your chakra in a similar fashion. Yurufu instructed him. Kakashi did what he was told. Focusing on bringing forward the energy he usually felt being pulled out of him while using the white light chakra saber. Though when he looked down at his hands, the chakra he had molded still looked ordinary. Kakashi tried again and again, but no matter how much he concentrated he couldn't get it right. Kakashi sighed in frustration. "What am I doing wrong?" he asked. "I'm not sure. Knowing the feeling of the white chakra should have made it possible for you to mold it on your own. That's why the white light chakra saber is given to every member of the Haddock family." Yurufu answered, slightly confused. "May I try something out?" Akio asked. "You have something in mind?" Yurufu frowned. Akio nodded in confirmation and then turned to his father. "Uncover your left eye." Kakashi's visible eye widened a little in realization at his son's implication. He shoved up his hit eye and opened his Sharingan. He then nodded at his son, indicating that he was ready. The white wolf's eyes looked all wonderingly at Kakashi. Akio molded his white chakra, showing a perfectly wide aura moving about in his hands. It was moving more violently than he knew normal chakra would move in one's hands. Now with the Sharingan copying the method of how exactly white chakra is molded, he was about to copy his son in molding the white chakra himself, though before he could get very far, his Sharingan eye started to burn very intensely, bringing him to his knees with a cry of pain and clutching his left eye as he shut it close. "Padded?" Akio exclaimed in worry as he rushed to his father's side. "Naruto. That's why you had trouble molding the white chakra on your own. Where did you obtain that eye?" At Yurufu's tone Akio could hear the old wolf wasn't that happy at how things turned out. "I got it years ago at the request of a dying friend." Kakashi answered through the pain still throbbing through his eye. "It's a wonder you are capable of using that eye. Any other Haddock would have succumbed from the pain." Yurufu said. "I can understand why you are saying that, but why does it react so violently?" Kakashi asked. "The white chakra has two advantages to normal chakra. One is that it is rather violent, making lightning techniques more powerful. The second is its purifying capabilities." Yurufu answered. "Purifying capabilities?" Kakashi asked in wonderment. "Yes, the capability to purify any vile chakra it comes in contact with. It can even purify a person that came into contact with a Bijuu's chakra, but only if the amount isn't greater than that of the white chakra." Yurufu answered. "What is this to do with the Sharingan, though?" Kakashi asked next. "That eye is cursed. Anyone born with it has a slightly tainted chakra. Activated, they will slowly succumb to the darkness." Yurufu answered. "How can I use both the white chakra and the Sharingan though? And why didn't this happen before?" Kakashi asked. "You can't unless you can suffer through the pain and make that eye your own. As for why this didn't happen before, you hadn't activated it yet, not truly anyway." Yurufu told him. "I see." Kakashi sighed. "I give you two choices before I decide to train you properly. Or you give up on that eye or you manage to make that eye your own." Yurufu said in a serious tone, almost sounding like scolding. After that, the wolves excused themselves and went back home. Kakashi stared at the ground, going over what he had learned today. There were some difficult decisions he had to make. How could he choose between two things that meant a lot to him? He couldn't give up the gift his friend had given him. He had promised Obito he would bear his eye for him to see the future. On the other hand, he couldn't give up the heritage of his family. He balled his hand to a fist in his frustration while he was with his other hand still clutching his left eye. "Are you octed?" Akio asked his father in concern, laying a hand on his shoulder. Kakashi looked up. He then pulled his hit eye down again. There was still a throbbing pain in the Sharingan though. "I'm fine." Kakashi tried to reassure the boy. "It's still hurting, isn't it?" Akio said, seemingly seeing through his reassurance. Kakashi sighed. "Don't worry, the pain will probably go away eventually. I'll be fine, promise." He said, smiling down at Akio and ruffling his hair. "So, what are going to do now?" Akio asked curiously. "I'm not sure. I can't just ignore my heritage, but I also can't give up the Sharingan. I promised a friend I would use this eye for him to be able to see the future." Kakashi said. "I see. Maybe you should take some time to think about it," Akio suggested with a smile. "Ah." Kakashi nodded in confirmation. He then smiled down at his son. "In the meantime, why don't you show me what else you can do besides the summoning technique?" Kakashi said. He was quite curious to the boy's capabilities. If the boy was really good, he thought he might teach him a thing or two right then. Akio grinned at him and suddenly disappeared, leaving only a spark of lightning behind. Kakashi blinked, then turned around, finding the younger Haddock standing behind him. That was almost like the Yondaime Reikage's technique. Kakashi thought in surprise. "How about that? I call this technique Denkumseka." Akio grinned. "Quite interesting. It might even surpass the Yondaime Reikage's technique." I'm talking about his speed here, which I think is actually a combination of two techniques. The body flicker technique and the lightning release armor. Make me wish I could copy it with a Sharingan. Kakashi replied, a somber expression on his face. So you noticed it, eh? Akio said, looking a little apologetic. It makes use of the white chakra, doesn't it? Kakashi said. Ah, as Yorufu already explained, the white chakra makes lightning attack stronger. Also, if you integrate it into your speed you'll go super fast. Akio said enthusiastically. Really? Kakashi asked surprised. If he can go this fast and still be able to see where he is going, then maybe, Kakashi thought, but was then interrupted. Yorufu also made me make my own lightning attacks. Wanna see? Akio grinned happily. Sure. Kakashi said, showing his usual eye smile on his face. Akio then showed him his Rakurai Raku and Raimei Tenkaijun no Jutsu techniques. Then, before he was ready to see Akio's next technique, he was shocked out of his thoughts by a little bang. As he looked into the direction he heard the sound coming from, he saw there was a small hole in the tree. Looking back at Akio, he saw some smoke and sparks coming from his outstretched hand. Wow. What exactly did you do? Kakashi sputtered. Want me to show you again? This time pay close attention. Akio grinned. Kakashi nodded. He was quite stunned and was wondering what that attack had been. Kakashi looked at the boy's hand. Akio was seemingly gathering lightning elemental chakra in it. Then before he could follow, it was gone and he heard the bang again. Kakashi looked in the direction of the sound again. A second hole had formed in the tree. Kakashi thought. He couldn't even follow it with the naked eye. It didn't seem to have much strength, though it could punch a hole in a tree. If aimed correctly, it might be even able to kill someone in one shot. Pretty awesome, eh? Akio grinned. Ah. Kakashi agreed. Though your aim must be pretty precise. I know, though Yorufu also taught me a very powerful attack. It does consume a lot of energy though, and it is rather destructive to the surrounding area as well. Akio said. I see, then maybe I should add some useful techniques to your arsenal. Kakashi replied, smiling brightly. Really, you will? Akio asked enthusiastically. Ah, though there are some requirements to find out if you'll be able to use the technique I'll teach you. Kakashi answered. What are those requirements? Akio asked curiously. To be able to see counter-attacks while moving at great speeds and be able to avoid them. Kakashi answered seriously. I see. So, if I can do this, you will teach me? Akio asked, looking at his father with puppy eyes. Ah. Kakashi answered. What have I gotten myself into? He wondered. Chapter 12. Ha. Ho. Ho. Kaya. Aw, dang it. Again. I just can't seem to block it quick enough and not so discouraged, Akio said, looking across at the man that he was starting to know as his father. Kakashi chuckled, thinking about their training exercise. He would let his son attack him with the speed of the Denkamseka, then counter the boy's attack, and in return Akio had to see the attack and avoid it. He noticed that the kid could perfectly see his counter, though it seemed he hadn't had enough experience yet to do something against the counter. Kakashi had been able to hit his son time and again, though it became more of a game of tag. He didn't really want to hurt his son. Akio didn't seem to mind though, since he was still learning from their little game, although the progress was going very slow. By the time it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Kakashi had to stop the training as he noticed Akio getting exhausted, and not only his body, but his chakra reserves were very low. Kakashi pulled the boy, his son on his back, and made his way back home. I don't want to go home yet. Why can't we train some more? Akio protested somewhat drowsily. It won't do you any good passing out from chakra exhaustion. Learn to know your limit. Kakashi replied. Akio pouted but didn't protest again. He had to admit it wouldn't be the first time he had passed out while training. Most of the time, he would be immobile for about a week after an episode of chakra exhaustion. The wolves had tried to limit him passing out since it would have caused him to lose time. He knew his limits alright, though he had had so much fun he didn't want to stop. He actually couldn't remember ever having this much fun. Maybe it was because he didn't allow himself that luxury. He had been so focused on getting stronger. As they were on their way back home, Shizune walked up to them. I've been looking for you for about an hour. Where have you been? Shizune asked, looking a little out of breath. The Haddock's training grounds. Why? Kakashi asked. Shizune looked perplexed at him. In all the time she had known Kakashi, he had never returned to his family home since his father had committed suicide. Never mind that. I was actually looking for you to tell you the results are in. Shizune answered. Kakashi looked expectantly at her, waiting for her to tell him what the results included, though of course he already knew the answer. Well, I guess I should congratulate you and your son. Shizune then said, though she didn't expect Kakashi to give her an eye smile. It didn't look at all like he was shocked. Now that she thought about it, he was only kind of shocked the moment he first laid eyes on the boy. "You already knew, didn't you?" she asked. He got my looks in his mother's eyes. "More I didn't have to know." Kakashi shrugged. "I see. Anyway, the Hokage wants to see you," she said. "Right, then we should take our leave," Kakashi said. Kakashi then made his way to the Hokage's office, Akio still on his back. He steered clear from all the curious people that, by now, wanted to get some answers from him. He ran the last bit and jumped up to enter through the window, since it was faster to get to the Hokage's office by the express route. "Why do you have to come through the window most of the time?" Tsunade asked, irritated. "Because it's faster," Kakashi answered simply. Tsunade sighed. Then she put some papers in front of him. "Since your son isn't an official citizen of Konoha, I need you to fill out these papers and have a picture taken of him for his ID," she said. It was then that Kakashi took notice of the photographer in the room. As Kakashi put Akio down, the photographer motioned for him to take position for the photo. In the meantime, Kakashi started to fill out the papers. Mostly he had to write down his son's name, his own, the name of his mother and some other info, though he didn't know the boy's date of birth. "Oh no, what's your birthday?" Kakashi asked his son. "It's July 31st, 1980. Akio answered. "That means this kid is about 7 years of age. He looks like he's only 5. Tsunade thought, a little shocked. After Kakashi was about to finish with the paperwork, Tsunade cleared her throat. "I would like to give Akio a medical checkup, if you don't mind," Tsunade said. Kakashi only nodded in agreement. They were then led the short distance to the hospital by Tsunade where she did the medical checkup. The Sannin looked grimmer and grimmer the more she progressed with checking Akio over. "What's the matter?" Kakashi asked, concerned, even though he assumed it had probably something to do with those people his son had been placed with when he was about 1 year old till the age of 4. There are signs of abuse on him, although they seem faded and old. There is also the fact he hasn't gotten enough nutrients in him, which has caused his growth to slow down," Tsunade said. "I figured something like that." Kakashi sighed, running his hand through his gravity-defying hair. Tsunade looked at him curiously. She was probably wondering why he wasn't as mad as he would have been had this been the first time he heard about the abuse. "He told me about his life before he found his way here," Kakashi clarified. "I see. I will prescribe him a special diet to try to get him back to a healthy rate of growth," Tsunade said, grabbing a piece of paper and making a list of things that Akio had to digest in a day so he would get enough nutrients. After the medical checkup, they were finally able to go back home. When they were almost there, however, they were stopped once again, this time by a pink-haired girl. Akio looked curiously at her. He had never seen a person with pink hair before. As he observed her closer he could see she, too, wore a headband, though she used it as a hairband on top of her head. As he thought back, he had spotted those headbands on Niji's and Tenten's foreheads as well. He wondered what those headbands meant. Aside from the band itself, there was also a metal plate with a symbol etched on it that looked vaguely like a leaf. His dad also had the same headband, so he guessed the symbol of the leaf was the village's symbol, which meant that this girl was at least a genin. "Sakura!" Kakashi exclaimed. "So it is true," Sakura said, giggling a little bit. "Ah. His name's Akio." Kakashi nodded, turning toward to his son. "This is Haruna Sakura. She's a student of mine." Kakashi introduced Sakura to his son. "It's nice meeting you." Sakura beamed. "Likewise." Akio returned shyly. Nah, Kakashi-sensei. What is she like?" Sakura asked, glowing. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He was afraid she would ask him something like that. And if he knew the others well enough, they would probably going to ask him the same question. "Tell you what, if you gather all the genin teams, including their teachers, I'll tell you the story. Though let's make it tomorrow at 10 in the morning, atop of the Hokage building, instead of tonight. We just want to get home after our long day," Kakashi told her. Sakura blinked, then squealed, delighted. With a "see you tomorrow," she was gone. Kakashi sighed. It was going to be a rough day tomorrow and a lot of digging in old memories. Of course, he had already told the story to his son, so the memories had already mostly been dug up. "Are you octed?" Akio asked curiously, seeing Kakashi a little depressed. Kakashi looked up into his son. He still couldn't get over the pride and amazement he felt at the thought, then smiled. "Ah, don't worry. It's just that I normally don't like to talk about my life," Kakashi answered. "I see. Well, you don't have to tell them everything, just the things they want to know. Summarize it if need be," Akio suggested matter-of-fact-like, shrugging. Once they finally arrived at home, the first thing Kakashi did was prepare a good melon full of nutrients. Though most of the times he didn't eat at home, he did have some food stocked up in his refrigerator, and he knew that some of it matched what was on the list Tsunade gave him. A few minutes later, and a filled plate was set in front of Akio. It seemed Kakashi had started right up and getting Akio back to a healthy state for a growing boy, and the younger Haddock found that he didn't really mind. The meal he ate was actually quite good, and he even asked for seconds to the delight of his father. After dinner, Kakashi dug up an old shogi board. He had once bought it to think up and improve his strategies, even though he knew the Naras were still better at that field than he was. He planned on teaching his son the game, so they at least had something to occupy themselves with. Normally, he would just read one of his Icha novels, though he didn't think it was a good idea to read those books in front of his son. Things really were going to change for him now he had a son to take care of. He internally sighed, thinking that there were some things he liked about this change. It really gave him a good feeling, this whole father thing. Kakashi got really surprised as his son beat him in the game 3 times in a row. Though after the third game, the kid was starting to fall asleep. "Looks like someone needs to go to bed," Kakashi said, chuckling. He picked up his son and carried him to his bedroom. Akio had snuggled himself against his chest the moment he had picked him up. After looking through the boy's things, he realized that his son didn't bring a pair of pajamas with him. "Looks like there are still some things I need to do," Kakashi thought. He grabbed an old t-shirt of his that his son could use as pajamas. Then he took off his son's clothes and put on the t-shirt. It was way too big and Akio was swimming in it, but it would have to do for now. He then tucked his son in. Though half asleep, Akio protested as Kakashi was about to leave, intending to spend his time reading his favorite book. Defeated by how vulnerable his son looked in the seriously oversized shirt, he changed into some comfortable clothes for the night and laid down next to his son. Akio snuggled against him some more and was out like a light in seconds. Kakashi sighed. Things were really going to change in his life, though he didn't find it a bad thing at all. He really enjoyed spending time with his son. He was proud at the level his son was at. Even he, himself hadn't been as skilled in ninjutsu as his son was when Kakashi was his age though. It still bothered him that the Sharingan was limiting his access to his heritage, to the white chakra. His eye still had a numb throb in it, as much as he tried to ignore it. He had a feeling the pain won't completely go away now that he had activated his white chakra. He could still feel it slightly. He also felt the Sharingan draining away most of it. He knew he had to make a decision soon, and either way he probably had to give up Oni or the other. Chapter 13. Earlier that day, with the rest of the genin and their Jinin. "I wonder who that boy's mother is. Do you think it's a slip-up or did Kakashi-sensei really love someone?" Tenten asked after swallowing her food. They were currently at Amaguriyama and they were both winding down from the last mission and enjoying the food from home. It was always so much better than the stuff that they had to eat on the road, especially with Guy as a sensei. "I don't know. Well, he does read those smutty books, he doesn't really act like Jiraiya-sama in public," Niji answered. "That's true, but still. Why did he never tell anyone he had a girlfriend? If he got a son out of it, he must have been in a serious relationship," Tenten said thoughtfully. "Or just made a slip-up, as you said," Niji countered, picking up a piece of mochi and slipping it into his mouth, chewing thoughtfully. "Well, Kakashi-sensei is a pervert, I can't really imagine he would just do that," Tenten shivered. "What are you two discussing? Did Kakashi-sensei do something stupid?" Came a voice suddenly from behind the pair. Apparently, it was Sakura who had heard bits of their conversation and got curious. "Not really, I think," Tenten answered. "While traveling home from our last mission we found a boy with a couple of wolf summons," Niji stated. "He told us his name was Haddock Akio," Tenten continued. "Apparently he's Kakashi's son, though it isn't confirmed yet," Niji shrugged. "He does look a lot like Kakashi-sensei. Even Guy mistook him for Kakashi, even though the kid looked to be only 5, Tenten said. "Really?" Sakura replied, blinking her eyes in surprise. "We're not kidding. You should go see the kid for yourself. He should be with Kakashi-sensei," Tenten said. "I think I'll do just that." Sakura smiled politely, though Tenten noticed some mischief. "I'll see you guys later." Sakura left with great haste. Tenten shrugged and continued eating. Sakura had searched almost every inch of the village and had yet to find her sensei. She just couldn't find him. He had to be somewhere in the village. Just in case, she went ahead and asked Tsunade Shisho if she knew where to find him or if he had perhaps been given a mission which required for him to leave the village. The slug Sanin told her he had been given a mission to watch the kid that Niji and Tenten had told her about until it was confirmed that he was Kakashi's son or just pretending to be in order to get close to him. Now Sakura was really curious. Sighing, she sat down on a bench, too tired anyway to take another step. "What are you sighing about?" came the wondering voice of Ino. "What do you want, Ino pig?" Sakura asked, not really in the mood to start an argument. "I was just wondering why you look so down, that's all," said Ino with a frown. "I'm looking for Kakashi-sensei, but I can't find him anywhere." Tsunade Shisho said he has a mission within the village. According to Niji and Tenten, they found this kid that they think is actually Kakashi's son. Shisho said his mission was to watch the boy until she could get confirmation. Sakura told Ino. You're kidding. Kakashi has a son? Ino asked perplexed. According to Niji and Tenten, yes, though Tenten said for me to see for myself. She did say the kid looked remarkably like Kakashi-sensei. Sakura replied. Now I'm getting curious. Tell you what, I'll help you find him. Ino said with gleaming eyes. Sure, why not? Sakura agreed. Have you checked his home yet? He is supposed to watch the boy, isn't he? Ino asked. Of course I did. He isn't there, though. Sakura replied. Where did you check? Ino asked. About everywhere within the village. Sakura answered, somewhat frustrated. You don't suppose he is outside the village perimeters, do you? Ino asked thoughtfully. I don't think so. He isn't supposed to leave the village, not while watching over the boy. Sakura informed Ino. I have an idea. Ino said after some thinking. Without waiting for a reply, Ino dragged Sakura off the bench she was seated on and led them to somewhere. Where, Sakura wasn't sure yet. Why do you want me to help you to find Kakashi-sensei? Such a drag. Shikamaru sighed. Tenten told me she and her team found this boy that looked remarkably like Kakashi-sensei. We're trying to find him to see if it is true. According to Tsunade Shisho, the boy is supposed to be with Kakashi since she put him on watch duty. Sakura explained. Wait, are you trying to tell us Kakashi-sensei has a son? Chaoji asked surprised. Well, it isn't confirmed yet, that's why we wanted to go see for ourselves. Ino told him. Though it's quite tiresome, seeing Kakashi-sensei with a kid sounds interesting. Shikamaru replied. So, you're in? Asked Sakura hopefully. Yeah, you can count us in, how troublesome it might be, though you might want to consider letting teammate in on this. They should be good at tracking him down. Shikamaru suggested. Teammate looked at them in shocked amazement as they were told the rumor about Kakashi having a son. You're kidding, right? Does he really have a kid? Kiba asked laughingly. I'm not kidding. Tenten told me, and Shisho confirmed it wasn't any kind of joke. We only need to find Kakashi-sensei and see for ourselves. Sakura told him. And you want us to sniff him out? Got ya. Kiba grinned, and Akamaru gave a delighted and mischievous yip. Now let's go find my eternal rival. Guy shouted. Yosh. Lee saluted. They ran off in search of the silvery white-haired, one-eyed Jinin. They didn't leave 1 inch unturned, even lifting stones, though normally humans even ninja don't hide under stones. What are you guys looking for? Asuma asked as they passed him. Both Guy and Lee stopped in their tracks and backtracked to Asuma. We're looking for my eternal rival. He knocked up a girl and I want to know who she is. Guy replied. You're saying Kakashi's got himself a kid? You serious? Asuma laughed. I'm not kidding. It was my wonderful, youthful team who brought the boy back to the village. You should see the kid, he's a sparkling image of Kakashi. Guy grinned. Asuma blinked surprised. So he does have a kid? That I want to see for myself. You know where Kakashi is? Guy asked full of hope. Unfortunately, no, though I can help you search for him. Asuma replied. Maybe we should split up. Lee suggested. A marvelous idea, my great student. Guy replied. I'll check the northern side of the village. If I meet someone on the way I'll tell them to help search for him. Asuma told them, then left to the north. I'll take the south. Lee shouted and ran off. Then I'll take both west and east. Guy yelled and also ran off. And so their search went on, though Asuma got tired of searching Kakashi when it turned late afternoon. He decided to go to a bar and get something strong to drink, needed it after a day like that. Not much later, and after he got his drink, he was joined by Kurenai. You look tired. Had a rough day? She asked him. You could say that. According to Guy, Kakashi has a son. I got curious if this was true, so I decided to help Guy and Lee search for Kakashi. I still haven't found him. Asuma answered, a huge sigh escaping from his lips. Man, he needed a cigarette with his drink, too bad he used his last one earlier when he first started to get frustrated with his lack of progress. Are you sure he isn't on a mission outside the village? Kurenai asked, though it seemed she also became curious about this news. I asked Agate earlier when I went searching near the tower. She said he's supposed to be in the village keeping an eye on the boy. Asuma replied. Who would have thought that Kakashi would become a father before all of us? Kurenai giggled. Yeah, I know. He isn't exactly the social type. Asuma replied, amused. Kakashi, a father? Since when? Came a question from behind the pair. Apparently it was Iruka and he wasn't alone. Several other Jinins were present as well, including Inoichi, Shikaku and Choza. Ai's team found this boy who looked remarkably like Kakashi. I haven't seen the kid myself, but Godame did say he was keeping an eye on a boy. She also said the kid looked very much like Kakashi. Asuma shrugged. Have you looked for Kakashi yet? Iruka asked curiously. Turned the whole village up and down. He is nowhere to be found. Asuma replied frustrated. Maybe he doesn't want to be found. Shikaku stated amused. He can't hide forever, now can he? Asuma said, an evil glint in his eye. But this is so boring. I think I may give up for the night. Ino complained, stretching out her low back as they stopped for a moment. The sun had started to fall as the evening wore on, and they were all getting tired from searching all day. I hate to agree with the troublesome woman, but this is ridiculous. It's nearly impossible for him to know that we are searching for him unless Sakura, did you tell anyone? Shikamaru asked, rubbing the back of his head in thought. Ino has been with me since she found out about it, but there's no telling if Tenten or Niji said anything to anyone else. Or teammate, for that matter, after we split up with them after lunch. I think we should just give up for the night. Kaka-sensei has to come home at some point, so I will stick around if you two want to go home. Shikamaru yawned loudly, rubbing the tears that formed out of his eyes. Sure. My mom is going to yell at me for being out so late and not watching the deer today, evil troublesome woman, so I might as well get it over with now, so I can eat my dinner in peace later. See you guys later. With that he waved to the Kunoichi duo and jumped to the rooftops. Ino looked over to Sakura, her weariness evident in her eyes and the drooping of her hair. I think I may call it a night. But you have to come get me first when Kakashi-sensei comes home. I can't let this juicy bit of gossip get to the other ladies before I get it. She winked at her friend and started to walk away. See you later, billboard brow. Ha. Only if I let you see me, Ino pig. And with that, the pale-eyed Kunoichi was gone. At the sight, Sakura turned around to head towards Kakashi's home. Just to run into the two people that they had been searching for. All day long. Kaka-sensei. Sakura-chan. So it is true. Boy, were the others going to be jealous when she told them she found her sensei when she stopped looking. Later, elsewhere in the village. Kakashi. My eternal rival. Wherever did you go? Chapter 14. Daddy. Kakashi, wake up. Kakashi finally returned to consciousness at the frantic shaking of his son. He bolted upright as he remembered why he had been so out of it, so impossible to wake up. He had been having a bad dream or, more likely, he had been reliving a memory from his past. It had been about the day he obtained the Sharingan. It had been his first mission as captain of the team, his first mission as a Junin. Absent-mindedly, he rubbed at his left eye. The pain was still there, though it numbed down when he rubbed it. Dad, are you alright? Came the worried voice of his son. Kakashi looked down at the little boy and smiled. A warm feeling spread inside of the elder Haddock, taking away the bad feelings and emotions the dream had given him. That's when the events of yesterday came back to him. His son had revealed to him the secrets of the Haddock's white chakra. The boy himself had gotten those secrets from his wolf summons, who apparently were the long-lost secret keepers. While trying to activate his own white chakra, a searing pain in his Sharingan eye prevented him from continuing to do so. The eldest of the wolves then gave him two options. He had to make the Sharingan his, or completely gave up on the eye, before the old wolf would teach him how to make use of the white chakra. This meant he had to suffer through a lot of pain, get the eye out of him, or totally give up on the white chakra altogether. I'm fine, Akiya, just a bad dream. Kakashi replied. Well, it's almost 10 o'clock. You did promise your student to tell her the story. Akiya said. I did, didn't I? Kakashi sighed, plopping half-defeated back down. He hadn't realized he had slept in that long. Come on, it can't be that bad, can it? You can hardly let them wait around forever. Akiya said, now trying to get him out of bed. Kakashi couldn't help but let his eye twitch a little, though he tried to suppress it in front of his son. He was a little annoyed that he was forced to tell secrets he really didn't want to reveal at all, but his son was right. He had promised Sakura that he would tell if she gathered up all the rookie teams. Why had he ever made that promise? Sighing, he finally got back up again. Fine, but I am not going before the two of us get some breakfast down first. Kakashi said sternly. Akiya pouted that his father was dragging out the meeting, but he had to agree. He was quite hungry. So the two Haddocks got dressed. Akiya put on some of his spare clothes that lay still somewhere on the ground. Kakashi didn't make that much haste to get dressed and get breakfast together. When they finally were ready, almost an hour had passed already. By the time they finally left the house, Akiya was half dragging Kakashi to hurry it up. Unfortunately for the young Haddock, he didn't know the way to the meeting point, so it still took about another hour to finally get to the place Kakashi had agreed upon meeting the others. Earlier that day. Sakura got up early that day to go tell the rookie teams about the meeting. She wondered what everyone's reaction would be when they hear the news. Ino would probably be jealous when the blonde heard she found Kakashi just minutes after they had given up. After dressing herself and getting something to eat, she rushed to Ino's house first. "Sakura. You're up early," Ino said with surprise in her tone. "You'll probably not believe it, but I found Kakashi yesterday. He promised to tell us his story if I would gather all the rookie teams and meet him atop the Hokage Tower at 10 this morning," Sakura replied. "You're kidding, right?" Ino asked. "I'm not kidding. The kid is the cutest and he really does look a lot like Kaka-sensei," Sakura answered. "And Kakashi said he'll just tell us his story if you gather all of the teams?" Ino asked doubtful. "Ma, I'm not really sure if he would really tell us or if he'll even be there on time, but the kid is for real and I want answers. I'll beat them out of him if I'll have to," Sakura told Ino, cracking her knuckles with a sadistic gleam in her eyes. "Then we better tell the others," Ino suggested, grinning. It didn't take long before they had gathered the rookie teams and a few additions, as it seemed there were more people interested in the rumor that had been going around the village. As it was already 10 minutes past 10 o'clock. As Sakura had thought, her sensei still hadn't arrived. Typical Kakashi. Asuma muttered as he took a long drag from his cigarette. "I'm sure he will come eventually. He did promise, you know," Sakura said, finding a seat on the floor. "I'm sure he will. The question is, when he will show up." Kurenai giggled. "How troublesome," Shikamaru said as he was leaning against the fence surrounding the place. Time was ticking slowly as they waited. Most of them were getting impatient. The Naras had fallen asleep after just another 10 minutes. Sakura was really getting annoyed at her sensei. He had better make sure he told them all they wanted to know for making them wait that long, or he was going in so much trouble. 2 hours after the agreed time, Kakashi finally appeared, being dragged along by the rumored kid. Most of the gathered people's attention was immediately set on the duo. At noticing the many eyes directed at them, the kid immediately shied away behind Kakashi. Kakashi didn't take another step as he looked at all the people gathered, his expression of someone who rather doesn't want to be there. "Come on, Kaka-sensei, don't come up with any excuses now. You did say you would tell your story if I gathered all the rookie teams. There is no turning back now. Spill it," Sakura said smugly, crossing her arms over her chest. Now Kakashi was really in a pinch, as he had no choice really but to say something. Why had he made that promise again? He only wanted to get away from the questions. It only had become worse with the sheer number of people that showed up to hear the story. Akio nudged him to get his attention, and as he looked down the boy motioned him to the others, encouraging him to go on and just tell them. "Well," Kakashi said, scratching the back of his head and avoiding any eye contact. "The story goes like this. And so, the Lady Hokage had me watch over him until we got the results back, which we did yesterday, and now I'm officially a father." Kakashi finished. He was surprised. He actually felt kind of relieved to get the story out. At least he didn't have to hide from his friends anymore. "You know, I never thought you of all people would become a parent first," Asuma said with a grin. "I wouldn't have thought so either," Kakashi admitted. "He's quite cute though. What's his name?" Kurenai asked curiously. "Akio," Kakashi supplied. Then questions were thrown to him from right to left, making his head spin. How he was glad when he could finally leave. By the time he could, it was already 3 o'clock. He was dead tired when he led his son back home. Atop of that, he had also a major headache that just didn't want to leave. He decided to have dinner early. They hadn't even had the time to get lunch, so he could get to bed early and hope the headache would be gone the next day. Akio seemed worried about his well-being as he kept glancing anxiously at him. "You okay, Dad?" Akio at last asked as they entered the apartment. "Just tired. It's been a long day. Let's get dinner now so I can get some rest afterwards. I probably will feel fine in the morning, then we can go shopping for your new clothing and to stock up on food," Kakashi reassured. "Fine, but I'll make the dinner," Akio said, leaving no space for arguments. Kakashi just let him, but he made sure nothing would go wrong. After the meal, he went to his bedroom and put on something more comfortable to sleep in. When his head hit the pillow, he was out like a light. Akio wasn't tired yet, so in a strange reversal of roles, he kept watch to make sure his dad would be okay. He really hoped it wasn't something serious and that it had been just the rough day they had. His father really hadn't been in the mood to tell his friends about how he met his mother and how he came to be in his life. What also bothered him most was that the elder had kept rubbing at the Sharingan when they had returned home. Was his father still in pain? It seemed like his dad couldn't completely deactivate the white chakra again like he could. A little part of it was still active, and it seemed like it was putting up a fight against the aura from the Sharingan. Snuggling against his father after putting on some nightclothes, he thought back at all the events that had eventually brought him here and how his future would look like from this point forward. Most of it was thanks to his wolf Samonsti were the ones that had guided him here. They had trained him to make him stronger. They had been his first friends he had ever had. Without them, he wouldn't have been able to be reunited with his dad. The people he met today were quite nice, though all that attention directed at him at once had made him quite shy. He wasn't really used to that many people at once, or that many people having an interest in him in a positive way. People had always ignored him or bullied him, and most of that was because of Dudley. He had made sure he couldn't make any friends. Maybe, if he was lucky, he now would have a chance at making friends. There was no Dudley here to chase anyone away, no one who would see him as a freak. He would be a ninja amongst ninja. Though he thought that the week or so wait to be able to join the other kids at the academy was going to go by so slow. Back in the wizarding world, about 3 years ago. One Albus Dumbledore was pacing in his office after the news he had just received. Arabella Figg had sent him a message that Harry Potter hadn't returned home for several days after she had seen him leave the house. She had assumed the Dursleys had refused to let him back inside for a few days as some kind of punishment. It certainly hadn't been a first time. Though now she began to worry, as the boy had still not returned and he had never stayed gone for such a long time. It was now up to Dumbledore to find out why the boy had not returned home yet or if Merlin forbid something bad had happened. His little tools at least told him that his golden boy was still alive, though the damn things didn't want to give him a location. He would have to use other resources to find the boy and put him back in place. It wouldn't do for his chess piece to get hurt even before his fated battle would start. The question was where he should start looking and how he could find the boy if he couldn't even trace him down by using the little magic he had put in him as a tracer. He stopped pacing and looked at his trusted companion, Fawkes. The bird in question looked back at him, waiting for the order the old headmaster was about to give him. "Fawkes, my dear friend, I need you to track down Harry Potter for me." Fawkes let out of a note and understanding, spread his wings to lift himself up in the air, and then disappeared from the room in a flash of fire. Chapter 15. Akio was quite nervous. The time had come when he would finally join the academy. This also meant he would be amongst other children his age, which he had never experienced before. He had mostly spent his first week here in Conahagakar with his father, and they slowly started to get to know each other. He also got to know Mido Guy, his dad's rival. Under all the eccentricities, the man was really an okay guy and a good taijutsu fighter. Akio, knowing he needed some work on his hand-to-hand fighting, had asked the man for training if his dad had no time to train him himself. Of course, the man couldn't say no to that and had challenged Kakashi that he could teach Akio faster than the silver-haired nin could. Kakashi immediately countered that he could teach his son a complicated ninjutsu before Akio would be a master in taijutsu. The boy had ignored their little rant after that, not really that much interested in their challenges. Though what still concerned him was his father's health. The elder Haddock still hadn't managed to completely rein in his white chakra. This resulted in Kakashi getting tired very quickly, had headaches sometimes, and barely had any grip on his chakra at all. Though he had informed the Hokage about any of these problems, he hadn't been sent on any missions anyway. Tsunade probably decided to give him some time to bond with his son. Going to the academy would also mean spending less time with his father, and so he had less time to keep a watch on the elder Haddock's health. He really was concerned that his father would collapse at some time from the strain. What if the white chakra finally got complete control over the situation? If the white chakra started to flare out to purify the Sharingan eye, his dad would be left in a very intensive pain and he wasn't sure if his father could handle as much. "Don't worry so much about me." Kakashi shook his son out of his thoughts. "I can't help it. You haven't been feeling very well all week and all because the white chakra is still straining itself against the Sharingan. Dad, you have to make a choice soon." Akio said worriedly. "I know that, but it isn't as easy a choice." Kakashi replied. "Now, come on, before we get there too late." Akio grumbled but followed his father to the academy anyway. The class was already filled with children when they got there. Kakashi stayed outside, nodding to Iruka so he could announce his son as a new student to the class. "As I already have told you, we are being joined by a new student today," Iruka told the class. At this moment Kakashi gave his son a little push to encourage him to enter the classroom. Akio reluctantly walked forward and faced the class shyly. "Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about your likes and dislikes," Iruka encouraged. Akio bowed politely. "My name is Haddock Akio. I like wolves. And my dad's the coolest. I dislike bullies." That was all Akio told them. He didn't have much else to say that he wanted to share with the class, and Iruka thought that it must be a Haddock trait to not say too much about Oniself had heard enough stories from Naruto to only cement the fact. "Thank you," Iruka said and then appointed him a seat. He was seated next to a girl with the strangest eyes he had ever seen, a pale violet in color and no readily apparent pupil. He had read about those kinds of eyes before by Byakugan. They looked kind of like the eyes of a blind person, though a little different. "Have you stared enough?" the girl asked, irritated. Akio recomposed himself, having not realized he had been staring. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Sorry about that. This is actually the first time I've seen someone with a Byakugan. Akio answered in honesty. Apology accepted. I'm Hyuga Hanabi. You said you were a Haddock. Does that mean you're related to Haddock Kakashi of the Sharingan? Hanabi asked with interest. Yes, he's my father. Akio grinned in response. But you didn't grow up within the village. Did you live with your mum? Hanabi asked. Not for very long. She died when I was very young. Akio answered. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Hanabi answered. It's okay. Akio replied. Before they could continue their conversation, Iruka took that moment to start with his lesson. His first lesson was about the history of the village, to which Akio listened with fascination and took notes of the important parts as was required of the students. He noticed there were some students that weren't really paying attention to the lesson. Finally, recess was among them. That was when most of the students turned their attention towards him. Obviously, they were interested in where he had come from. Most of them also had heard the stories about Sharingan Kakashi. Being his son had made him already quite popular in their eyes. Boy, back off a little. Give the poor guy some space. Hanabi put the crowd in their place before he could get a panic attack. Thanks Hanabi. Akio said, feeling much better now that the crowd wasn't that crammed around him. Being a genius and the son of Kakashi doesn't mean anything. Show me what you got. Came from a boy. Konohamaru, you aren't serious, are you? The kid just started today. A girl, next to the boy who was called Konohamaru, said. Well, I want to know if the son of the famous copycat Kakashi is as good as his father. Konohamaru replied smugly. Challenge accepted. Akio said. They moved to one of the training field at the academy. Before they could start though, Iruka got sight of them. What is going on here? He said sternly. Just a friendly challenge, sensei. You can keep watch if you like. See that nothing get out of hand. Akio replied reassuringly. Iruka sighed but gave them the signal to go on. The crowd went wild when they got their approval to fight. You know the drill. He then said to Konohamaru. Konohamaru nodded and showed Akio how to properly start a friendly spar. Akio copied the other boy and they started. Konohamaru immediately rushed forward intending to punch Akio directly in the face. Akio, though, used the body replacement jutsu just before he could be hit, making Konohamaru stumble to a stop as his target suddenly disappeared. The crowd gasped in shock. Iruka though wasn't as surprised. Knowing Kakashi, he had probably taught his son a thing or two before he would start at the academy. Akio countered by attacking Konohamaru from behind. He hit right on, but Konohamaru was quickly back to his feet. The other boy then charged right back at Akio. As the battle went on, Iruka was quite surprised at how much control Akio had over the body replacement technique. Not only that, he seemed also to know the body flicker technique pretty well and was already quite fast with it. Higher than Chunin level at the most. At last the battle came to an end with Akio being the obvious winner. Obviously the battle had made Akio even more popular amongst the students, though all the attention was making Akio quite uncomfortable. He still was getting used to being liked by people, after all. At Hogwarts, 2 years ago. Fox had returned from yet another failed attempt at finding the missing Harry Potter. It had already been a year since he had gotten word from Arabella Figg that the boy had gone missing. The Dursleys had fled Fourth Privet Drive just before Mrs. Figg had told him the news, which meant he couldn't get anything from their memories to give him a clue as to what exactly had driven the boy to run away or why he couldn't be found at all. Again, like he did many days before, Albus Dumbledore was pacing his office. Word had reached the ears of some of the old members of the Order of the Phoenix that the boy had gone missing and still hadn't been found. A knock sounded on his door and Dumbledore immediately stopped pacing and sat down before his desk before he answered the one who knocked. Come in. As it turned out, it was Minerva McGonagall, his most trusted teacher of Transfiguration and the deputy for his position as headmaster. You still haven't found the boy? She questioned worriedly. No, I'm afraid not. No matter how hard I try, the boy somehow can't be found by any magical means. Albus answered. Then the normal way. There must be some way to find him. Minerva replied. The world is quite big. The boy could be anywhere. Besides, if magic can't find him, he certainly won't be found the normal way. You know the principles of the Fidelius, don't you? Albus said in return. You don't mean he might be taken by Death Eaters, do you? Why take him alive? He is still alive, isn't he? Minerva asked a little panicked. Rest assured. There hasn't been any change in his status. Harry is still alive, though if he was taken by Death Eaters, I have no idea why they haven't killed him yet. Maybe they are trying to get him on their side. Albus said. If that is the case, how will we be able to win the fight if you know who finally decides to return? Minerva asked. I am not sure, but I am trying my hardest to get the boy back at our side as soon as I can. I just have to find some new ways of tracking people down. Albus reassured. I sure hope you will. Minerva said before she left the room again. I sure hope so too. Albus mutters to himself as he stood back up to get back to his pacing. He still wondered what kind of spell was keeping the boy so well hidden. He had made sure the boy wasn't in some kind of other dimension. All the spells and trinkets he used all stated the same. The boy was still within this dimension. If it was a Fidelius the boy was under, it must be a very strong one because he had long ago found a way to break through most any kind of Fidelius. Besides that, most phoenixes could find their target no matter how well hidden they were. If even Frox couldn't find the boy, it must be a really strong kind of Fidelius or it was a completely new way to conceal oneself. He was sure, though, it couldn't have been the boy himself. He wasn't even trained yet. Hell, the boy was still around a year of 5 or so, more than half the age of a first-year Hogwarts student. How much trouble could the boy get into? He was interrupted once again by a knock on the door. As he sat down once again and told the person to come in, it turned out to be Severus Snape this time. Severus was the potions teacher, as well as being his spy amongst the Death Eater's ranks. How are things going on your side? Albus immediately got to the case. Unfortunately there has been no word of the boy being kidnapped by one of the Death Eaters. They don't even seem to know the boy is missing. Snape replied. I see, so even they don't know the boy's location. And what about Voldemort? Albus then asked. No word about him either. Snape answered. I was hoping to receive at least some good news. Albus sighed. Maybe we'll have some luck another time. Maybe. I'll take my leave now if you don't need me at the moment. Snape said. You can go, Severus. Dumbledore nodded. At the closing of the door yet again Albus Dumbledore stood up again for a second time that day and continued his pacing yet again. There must be a way to get through that irritating thing blocking my way. There just have to. What if Naruto was a chakra user in Harry Potter? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.